Chapter 822. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. Little Jing Kong was a polite child, especially to his classmate's father. He felt his old father's embarrassment and thought, should I give him a hug? Hello, Light Shui's father. In the end, he chose to shake his little hand very seriously. He could only give Jiao Jiao a hug. Yan Shanjun, who was not comforted. The little princess introduced her father to Gu Jiao, and then introduced her friends and teacher to her father. Yan Shanjun then knew that this little girl was his daughter's teacher. What does she teach you? Killing people? In the palace, he saw this little girl like a killing god, shooting down the Han family's henchmen with 1 arrow, 2 arrows and 2 arrows. This little girl was simply a born archer. Riding. The little princess said in a cute voice. Young Master Xiao is my equestrian teacher. Yan Shanjun secretly sighed in relief. Equestrian skills, fortunately. Gu Jiao touched her little head. Next time I'll teach you archery. Yan Shanjun's body shook. His mind inexplicably flashed with the bloody scene of his dear daughter drawing her bow and shooting an arrow through the enemy's head. His little lady, don't become like that. The two little people went to play happily again. A certain little lady had no intention of sticking to her father. Yan Shanjun felt a deep sense of helplessness. He just went out for a trip. How come his daughter is not his anymore? Gu Jiao glanced at Yan Shanjun and stepped back to her room. When she walked past Yan Shanjun, she stuck out her little chest. She signaled with her eyes that the seniority was equal. Shang Guanyin also straightened her back and walked in front of him. Humph, the seniority is higher. This is what it means to raise the seniority of the whole family, by one's own strength. The speechless Yan Shanjun. Gu Jiao first went to the side of Long Yi, wanting to see the injury of Long Yi. She remembered that before leaving, she had repeatedly warned Long Yi not to move randomly. She also didn't know whether he was obedient or not. If by any chance he moved the bandage and gauze, then the wound would easily get infected. But the moment she stepped into the room, the corner of her mouth fiercely twitched. She saw that Long Yi was still maintaining the posture she had seen before she had left. Half twisted his body, one hand in front of his body, and the other hand was raised high above his head. He was motionless as if he wanted to spike the ball. Long Yi, what are you doing? She walked over and asked. Long Yi still didn't move, but his eyeballs moved a bit. As if to say, hey, I didn't move. Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao covered her eyes. Was that what she meant? You were so disobedient in the past. Why did you only listen to this sentence? Gu Jiao faintly felt that Long Yi was waiting for her to praise him. So strange. Why did I read this feeling from his eyes? Gu Jiao looked at the gauze wrapped around his arm and waist, and decided to praise him. Long Yi is really great, really obedient. Okay, you can move now. Always standing like this, isn't he afraid of muscle stiffness and cramping? Before she finished sighing, Long Yi stopped his posture and took out a box of charcoal. Obedient Long Yi should be rewarded, and now, it was time for Long Yi to use the charcoal. Gu Jiao. Falling into a pit is still okay? The Crown Prince and Madame Han were handed over to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's Chancellor personally tried the case of the fake monarch. Mother and son were imprisoned in different torture rooms. At first, both of them were very stubborn, but if the Supreme Court's Chancellor didn't even have this little bit of means, then he would have sat on the throne in vain. The Crown Prince was a tough nut to crack, but he also had a weak spot, and his weak spot was his mansion's little daughter who was only 2 years old. In order to extort a confession, the Supreme Court's Chancellor didn't hesitate to bring his little daughter, and let him look at her through the door, then took her to the next room. Next door, his little daughter's frightened cry came, and the Crown Prince suddenly panicked. Stop! Stop for this emperor. She is the princess of Great Yin. You can't treat her like this. The Supreme Court's Chancellor coldly said. Committing such a monstrous crime. Do you think you can still be a prince? Your crime is more serious than Shang Guanyan's that year. You are not as favored as her, and your whole family will be demoted to commoners. Father. I'm scared. Father. I'm scared. Next door, his little daughter's cry was heart-wrenching, and the crown prince's willpower was completely defeated. His hands firmly pulled his sleeves, and with red eyes, he gritted his teeth and said, "Don't hurt her. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything." Next door, Gu Chengfeng rubbed his throat that was almost smoking. Imitating a child's voice was really too difficult. In fact, it was not that similar. But separated by a wall, the crown prince's mind was in a mess, and his head was hot, so the crown prince didn't quite hear it. The crown prince confessed his crime. This time, the palace coup had little to do with him. He didn't know the Han family's plan in advance. His biggest mistake was refusing to believe that the emperor in the palace was fake, but he didn't have time to cause substantial harm. He also didn't know that the Han family led troops to encircle and suppress the emperor. His main crime was to frame the real imperial grandson, Xiaoheng. The Supreme Court's chancellor recorded while setting off stormy waves in his heart. Who would have thought that the imperial grandson would have such an inside story? Where is the real imperial grandson? Who is Shang Guanqing's real identity? The Supreme Court's chancellor asked. The crown prince lightly said, "You have to ask Shang Guanyan about this. This emperor doesn't know. How could he waste his energy on a fake imperial grandson? As for Xiaoheng, that kid suddenly disappeared from Xingdu, and he couldn't be found even with a lantern." The Supreme Court's chancellor continued to interrogate. "Who did you instruct? The Han family?" The crown prince clenched his fist. "Nangong family. Dukongwa's mansion." Gu Jiao, who was holding the brush until her hands were soft, leaned on the table and breathed heavily. Long Yi was resting. He went to look for a new charcoal pencil. Xiaoheng walked into the room with a plate of freshly cut melons and fruits. Seeing Gu Jiao leaning on the table, he walked over and pinched her face. "Tired?" Gu Jiao. "Oh no. Her hands were sore." "Eat something," Xiaoheng said. "It's not too cold, the sweetness is just right." Gu Jiao sat up straight and used a skewer to pick up a small piece of honeydew melon, but she didn't hurry to eat, rather paused. Xiaoheng asked, "What's wrong?" Gu Jiao said, "I was thinking about a dream I had a few days ago." Xiaoheng curiously asked, "Oh, what did you dream about?" Gu Jiao thought for a bit and decided not to hide it from him. "I dreamed that Han family used the fake emperor's hand to start civil strife. The 10 great clans killed each other, and Han family and Nangong family, who originally belonged to the crown prince's camp, also fought each other." Xiaoheng deeply looked at her and understood that she saw the future in her dream again. No wonder she knew that the emperor was replaced. Xiaoheng muttered to himself for a moment, then said, "The crown prince needs Han family and Nangong family. He wants to balance the relationship between the two clans, but Han family and Han family desire to be the strongest. From this point of view, Han family and Nangong family are on opposite sides." Gu Jiao nodded her head. "So it's not strange for them to fight. Then who won in the end?" Xiaoheng asked. Gu Jiao shook her head. "No one won. In that civil war, there was no true winner. Han family thought that they could control the situation, but they did not know that the counterattack of the great clans was much more unreasonable than she had imagined. All of the clans suffered heavy losses, and the Han family and Nangong family, the two most powerful military clans, fought fiercely. Jin and Liang took advantage of the situation. Gu Jiao looked at the 2 largest pieces of honeydew on the plate, but now the situation may change. Han family and Nangong family were both going to be punished. They had a common enemy and did not have the energy to fight among themselves, so it was very likely that they would temporarily work together to fight against the outside world. Gu Jiao's guess was confirmed in the middle of the night. Steward Zheng heard the news that night from outside. The Han family refused to hand over the commander's seal, and took a group of elite soldiers to kill their way out of the west gate. An hour later, the people of Nangong family also led their soldiers out of Xingdu. Over the years, the great clans had infiltrated many of their trusted subordinates into the military camp. Thus, a considerable portion of the soldiers listened to the orders of the clans themselves. After the 2 great clans killed their way out of Xingdu, they gathered the soldiers of the various military camps outside Xingdu and advanced through the night to the border. They also stationed a lot of soldiers at the border. It was no longer important whether the crown prince and the Han family fell into the hands of the monarch. If the Han family wanted to survive, they could just rebel. What the Xianyuan family did not accomplish in the past, the Han family would complete it now. Coincidentally, the Nangong family also thought the same. Gu Jiao looked at the twinkling stars in the sky. Is civil war still inevitable? The invasion of Jin and Liang. In the dream, it was the 11 great clans that were fighting each other. But now, it was the 9 great clans that were ordered to suppress the Han and Nangong families. Gu Jiao muttered to herself. What will the Nangong and Han families do when they have nowhere to go? Xiao Heng looked up at the endless night sky. They will open the gate to the border and drive the tiger to swallow the wolf. Digression. The third night watch is here. Is there a monthly ticket for me to sneak in? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/10597296. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 823. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Xiao Heng's guess was confirmed in the following days. In the middle of August, news came from Tianshan Pass that the Jin army was heading east. 2 days later, news came from Yanmen Pass that the Liang army was heading east. The Han family and the Nangong family were still on the way and wouldn't reach the border so soon. They should have contacted the border guards through their trusted subordinates. Tianshan Pass was defended by the Han clan's forces, while Yanmen Pass was defended by the Nangong clan's forces. Although there were other generals, the main generals were the trusted aides of these two clans. As soon as the secret report arrived, the two clans' forces quickly swept away the obstacles and took control of the situation at the border. When the news reached Xingdu, the monarch was so angry that he smashed the inkstone in the imperial study. The eunuchs and maids in the room were so scared that they knelt on the ground. Zhang Dequan didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Who would have thought that after capturing Madame Han and imprisoning the crown prince, the two families would join hands to rebel? They were much more arrogant than the Xianyuan family in the past. The Xianyuan family didn't rebel because they were afraid of being arrested. They knew about the secret agreement between the monarch and the Jin and Liang countries, so they decided to rebel. At that time, only the monarch, Xianyuan Li, and Zhang Dequan were in the imperial study. Zhang Dequan still felt enlightened when he recalled Xianyuan Li's words of righteous indignation. Xianyuan Li said, "Shengguan Jingyang, do you really think that the Xianyuan family is your biggest threat? In order to get rid of the Xianyuan family, you don't hesitate to ask a tiger for its skin. One day you will regret it." After 16 years, Xianyuan Li's words finally came true. The ambitions of the Jin and Liang countries could no longer be hidden. However, the Yan kingdom didn't have the million soldiers of the Xianyuan family. What could they use to fight against the two great countries? Not to mention that the Han family and the Nangong family had taken away almost half of their troops. How could they fight this war? What chance did they have of winning? If Xianyuan Li was still alive, and all the men of the Xianyuan family were still alive, they might have been able to win the war with fewer troops. However, they had all died in battle. Ever since Han Shi revealed her true face, the monarch had not spent a single day without regret. Regardless of whether it was internal or external troubles, as long as the Xianyuan family was present, there would not be so many demons and monsters. He was afraid that the Xianyuan family was so powerful that he wanted to exterminate the entire Xianyuan family for a prophecy. But in the end, Great Yan's empire still fell into a precarious situation. The king took a deep breath and calmed himself down. I still have the army, the Wang clan and the Mu clan and the Black Wind cavalry. I might not lose. Report. Outside the imperial study, the anxious voice of a spy suddenly came in with a report. Announce it, the monarch said seriously. Zhang Dequan summoned the spy into the imperial study. However, there was more than one spy. Reporting to your majesty, there's an urgent report from Blue Snow Pass. The Chun nation's army is advancing toward the east. Your majesty, the spies have discovered the Zhao army. Reporting to your majesty, the Qishui Pass has discovered the Zhao country's army. Out of the 6 countries in the world, 5 of them were marching towards the Yan kingdom. This was no longer just the invasion of Jin and Liang. Even the other 3 countries were taking advantage of the situation to take a bite of the Yan kingdom's fat meat. If it was in the past, Zhao Chun and Zhao naturally would not have the courage. But now, the news of Jin and Liang sending troops to the Yan kingdom had already shaken the world. The good news of the Han clan and Nangong clan's defection did not escape the eyes of the spies of the other countries. If they did not take a share of the soup now, when would they? The monarch's blood and qi surged. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot and fainted on the ground. Zhang Dequan hurriedly invited the imperial physician and asked someone to invite Gu Jiao, Shang Guanyan, and Xiao Heng into the imperial palace. To be honest, the development of the matter was indeed somewhat unexpected. Originally, they thought that by stopping the Han clan, they could stop a civil war. Without the consumption of the civil war, Jin and Liang would not easily confront the Yan kingdom head-on. Who would have thought that the Han clan and Nangong clan would join hands to rebel? Not only did they bring about civil strife, but they also directly knocked open all the border checkpoints of the Yan kingdom, turning the invasion of the 2 countries into a plundering of the 5 countries. In the dream, Zhao Chun and Zhao did not participate in the carving up of the Yan kingdom, because at that time, the Yan kingdom was only a shell, and Jin and Liang could easily take it. Now the Yan kingdom had strong soldiers and strong horses. Losing was inevitable, but it was bound to be a fierce battle. They had no time to care about the Yan kingdom's eastern region. The situation is even more serious than in the dream. Gu Jiao had so many prophetic dreams, but this was the one that was the most out of her control. Would everyone still go to the ending in the dream? The carriage arrived at the imperial palace. The monarch had just experienced a small stroke and was rescued by the imperial physician in time. He looked very haggard, as if he had aged more than 10 years in a day. He was lying on the bright yellow dragon bed, and his breath was drifting. He tasted the taste of regret, and also the bitter fruit of retribution. Gu Jiao checked his body. There was no danger to his life, but his body could not be as agile as before in a short period of time. Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng could see that he had something to say to Shang Guanyan. The 2 turned and walked out. Zhang Dequan also left with the palace people. Only the father and daughter were left in the huge bedchamber. Shang Guanyan stood in front of the dragon bed, looked at the old and weak monarch lightly, and asked, "Do you regret it?" The monarch's lips twitched twice, and a trace of regret flashed in his turbid eyes. But he was stubborn on the surface, unwilling to admit that he was frivolous. But in fact he had long regretted it. It was just that he did not expect that he would regret it so thoroughly. It was not the Xianyuan clan who took away the destiny of the Yan kingdom, but himself. He destroyed the Xianyuan clan, and destroyed the strongest barrier of the Yan kingdom. The Yan kingdom became a fish on the chopping board, and even the Xia kingdom raised the butcher knife in their hand. He recalled countless times in his heart, if the Xianyuan clan was still there, who would dare to invade? Save, he opened his mouth trying to say something. He just had a stroke, so his voice was small and unclear. "Do you want me to save the Yan kingdom?" Shang Guanyan said lightly. "I won't promise you. Sex life." What he said was to save his life and quickly escape. The Yan kingdom was going to die. The Yan kingdom's princess would not end up like this. Leave with the 2 children and never come back. The Yan kingdom's monarch looked at the direction of the door, which was half open. From his angle, he could not see Xiao Heng, only Xiao Heng's shadow on the ground. He opened his mouth with difficulty, but in the end he did not call out that name. Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng squatted on the ground. Xiao Heng broke a branch and drew a map of the 6 countries. Xiao Heng pointed at the map with the branch and said, "The Yan Kingdom is in the middle. To the north is the ice field, and to the south is the Red River. The west borders the Jin Kingdom and the Liang Kingdom. And these three countries form a triangle." Gu Jiao understood. That's why the Jin Kingdom tried to rope in the Liang Kingdom to prevent the Liang Kingdom and the Yan Kingdom from becoming allies. Xiao Heng nodded. That's right. What about the east? Gu Jiao asked. Xiao Heng pointed at two small circles on the map with the branch and said, "To the east are the Chun Kingdom and the Zhao Kingdom. The Chun Kingdom is in the northeast, the Zhao Kingdom is in the southeast, and the Zhao Kingdom is the furthest. We have to go around the Chun Kingdom to reach it." Gu Jiao asked. The Tian Shan Pass blocking the Jin Kingdom is guarded by the Han family, and the Yen Gate Pass blocking the Liang Kingdom is guarded by the Nangong family. What about the Chun Kingdom and the Zhao Kingdom? Xiao Heng said. The Zhangxue Pass is guarded by the Mu family to prevent the Chun Kingdom's cavalry from invading. The Red River Pass is guarded by the Wang family to prevent the Zhao Kingdom's navy from invading. If the Zhao Kingdom wants to attack the Yan Kingdom, the best way is to go around the Chun Kingdom and go through the Chongping Pass in the ice field. The pass is guarded by the local army. Gu Jiao paused. The Zhao Kingdom is the furthest. They can't get here so quickly. Xiao Heng looked at the map and said, judging from the distance and marching speed, the fastest is the Jin Kingdom and the Liang Kingdom's army, followed by the Zhao Kingdom's navy, and then the Chun Kingdom's cavalry. Gu Jiao asked again, who is leading the army in the Zhao Kingdom? Xiao Heng pondered and said, to cross the Red River, they need the protection of the navy. If there are no accidents, it will be my father, Marquis Xianping. Gu Jiao was speechless. Should they fight or not? What about the Chun Kingdom? Gu Jiao asked. Xiao Heng thought for a while and said, although there is no definite news from the Chun Kingdom, the Chun Kingdom suffered a defeat last year. In order to boost the morale of the army, the Yuan Tang will lead the army. As for who would lead the army in the Zhao Kingdom, Xiao Heng wasn't sure. He didn't know much about the Zhao Kingdom, but he was sure that the Yan Kingdom couldn't fight against 5 countries at the same time. Gu Jiao asked curiously, the Yuan Tang and the Emperor of the Zhao Kingdom don't know that we are in the Yan Kingdom. If they know that we are going to fight, will they still fight? Xiao Heng looked at her and asked, you will fight? Gu Jiao squatted and drew circles on the ground. She said casually, I am the commander of the Black Wind Battalion. I will fight, right? The commander of the Black Wind Battalion could quit at any time if she wanted to. Xiao Heng opened his mouth and said, it's not all for you and the Jing Kong. Gu Jiao understood what he wanted to say. She looked up at the endless sky and said, I just feel that I should do this. Digression, I'm a bit stuck. Please read it in the afternoon. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_105956088. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 824. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. While the two were talking, Shang Guanyan came out of the bedroom. Shang Guanyan frowned and pursed her thin lips. Xiao Heng threw away the branch in his hand, pulled Gu Jiao to stand up, and asked Shang Guanyan, what did the emperor say? Shang Guanyan frowned and said, he told us to run away quickly. If he didn't say that, she would have run away with the children. But if he really told her to run away, she didn't want to run away. Sure enough, the human heart is the strangest thing in the world. We can't escape. Xiao Heng said. With the ambition of Jin and Liang, the great Yan royal family, and the descendants of Xianyuan can't escape. As long as the Great Yan's mountains and rivers are trampled, there is only one ending waiting for them. Shangguan Yan nodded her head. You go back to the Duke's mansion first. I'll summon the ministers to discuss the affairs of the imperial court. The emperor had a stroke, and the border was in chaos. It's really a double whammy. But no matter what, they have no way out. Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng took the carriage back to the Duke's mansion. The news from the imperial court had already spread throughout the entire residence. Steward Zheng scolded the Han clan and Nangong clan, and also ridiculed the various countries that harbored evil intentions. Of course, he didn't forget to greet the monarch who acted on his own accord. A room full of people gathered in the lobby. The old chancellor whispered beside Empress Dowager Zhuang. Why did our emperor come to join in the fun? Isn't he a benevolent emperor? With my understanding of him, it's good if others don't attack him. He won't take the initiative to start a war. He's not that courageous. The country he's fighting is not a small country like the Qin country, but the most powerful Yin country among the three countries. Empress Dowager Zhuang coldly snorted. At first glance, it's not his idea. It must be someone who urged him. The old chancellor thoughtfully said, Who urged him? Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, If it's not Marquis Xianping, then it's Tang Yueshan. Tang Yueshan was more likely. The old chancellor was at his wits' end and said, Aheng is the eldest grandson of the emperor of Diyan. Jiao Jiao is the adopted son of the duke's manor. If they really fought, it would be very awkward. Empress Dowager Zhuang glared at him. Was this a question of whether it was awkward or not? The old chancellor coughed lightly. Then what do you plan to do? What was she going to do? If it were up to her, she would have brought the children back to Zhao country immediately, far away from the Yan country. But that was impossible. From the moment the children stepped into the Yan kingdom, their fate was already tied to the Yan kingdom. She only hoped that Jiao Jiao would not go to war again. There were so many famous generals in the Great Yan clan, so there was no need for a girl to go on an expedition, right? But when Gu Jiao went to find Black Wind King as soon as she entered the courtyard, Empress Dowager Zhuang understood that she was going to the battlefield again. Empress Dowager Zhuang silently returned to her room. Ah, Zhuang. The old chancellor glanced at Duke Yin and Second Master Jing on the wheelchair across from him and smiled. Excuse me for a moment. He chased over to Empress Dowager Zhuang's side. Empress Dowager Zhuang sat in front of the window, looking at the crabapple tree in the courtyard. The old chancellor asked, What are you doing? You left without saying a word. Empress Dowager Zhuang did not speak. The old chancellor sighed. Things have not reached that point yet, right? Don't first. She is only 16. Empress Dowager Zhuang spoke. The old chancellor was startled. Empress Dowager Zhuang lowered her eyes and took out a new pouch from her wide sleeve. There are still 2 months before she turns 17. Last year, she was at war for her birthday, and this year, she is at war again. 15 or 16 years old was the age of innocence. She should be in her boudoir and receive the protection of her parents, but she had already gone to war twice. Jiao Jiao had never had a good day's rest. She thought that she had been tired enough in this life, but seeing Jiao Jiao, she felt that she was not tired enough. If she was a bit more tired, would she be able to share a bit more of Jiao Jiao's burden? Great Aunt. Gu Jiao's voice came from the door. She knocked on the door. Can I come in? Empress Dowager Zhuang put away the pouch and said in a normal tone. Come in. Gu Jiao pushed open the door and entered. Looking at the old chancellor, she said, Oh, great uncle is also here. The old chancellor calmly glanced at Zhuang Jince, who no longer had any trace of melancholy. Smiling, he asked Gu Jiao, Is there something you need? Gu Jiao said, It's nothing much, it's just that the situation in Yan is not too good. Aheng and I discussed it a bit, and decided to find someone to escort you back to Zhao first. Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, Even if you did not say it, we were planning to leave. After staying for so long, we are already tired of it. The Han family and the Nangong family's defection completely disrupted their original plans. The 10 great families and Yan's ruler were no longer the enemies in front of them. The armies of the 5 countries were. The old chancellor understood Zhuang Jince. She definitely would not abandon Gu Jiao. The reason that she wanted to leave was because she had a reason that she had to leave. He very quickly thought through the crux of the matter and said to Gu Jiao, "Your great-aunt's meaning is that we should quickly set out and do our best to reach Qishui Pass before Zhao launches their attack. Don't let the two countries really start fighting." Jin and Liang countries had no way of stopping them, but Zhao Chun and Zhao countries could still fight for them. Regardless of who the general of Zhao country was, he and Zhuangjins could stop them. As for Chun country, Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng discussed it, and decided that Xiao Heng would go and negotiate with Yuan Tang. Xiao Heng would bring Gu Jiao's handwritten letter and the golden seal of the Yin Emperor's grandson. In fact, it was most appropriate to let Gu Jiao handle this matter. After all, Yuan Tang had a relationship with Gu Jiao. Yuan Tang had told Gu Jiao more than once that the future crown prince of Qin country owed her a favor and would return it to her in the future. However, they might not necessarily meet Yuan Tang this time. Secondly, Gu Jiao had a more important task to do. Yuan Tang knew Xiao Heng and was let out of the capital by Xiao Heng. Therefore, Xiao Heng was the second best choice. Xiao Heng's purpose was not only to stop Qin country from going to war with Yan country, but also to use Qin country's forces to stop Zhao country, which was taking a detour. It was not an easy task, but if they could not stop the two countries, once the eastern border of the Yan kingdom was breached, the morale of the western border would plummet, and the war with the Jin state and the Liang state would be even more difficult. After confirming the plans of both sides, Xiao Heng went to the imperial palace and told Shang Guanyan the plan. Shang Guanyan had a fierce discussion with the military ministers of various aristocratic families for the whole night, and finally finalized all the plans. Xiao Heng would go to Tsangshui Pass in the northeast as the Yan Emperor's grandson, and negotiate with Chen country's army. Wang Su would lead an army to escort him. Dukan would go to Qishui Pass in the southeast as the Yan Emperor's envoy to negotiate with Zhao country's army. The Feng family's patriarch, Feng Wuxiu, would lead an army to escort him. The reason why the young Feng Wuxiu was chosen was because he had a powerful elder brother, Taoist priest Qing Feng. Grandaunt and son-in-law would be arranged in the accompanying team. Next was the choice of the western border. Tianshan Pass and Yanmen Pass were both in the western border of Yan country. The Black Wind cavalry could reach there in 15 days, while the infantry and supplies needed 1 month. In other words, it was likely to be September when they arrived there. Outside the throne room, Shang Guanyan looked at the west in a daze. It's already very cold in Tianshan Pass in September. Let the soldiers wear warm clothes. Xiao Heng looked at her deeply. What are you going to do? Shang Guanyan whispered. I'm going to ask for another imperial edict. The odds of winning this war were too small. The morale of the soldiers of Yan country was not high. If they wanted to win, they needed the emperor to go to war to boost their morale. However, the emperor was old and had just caught a cold. Obviously, it was not suitable for him to travel far. On the same day, the emperor issued an imperial edict, conferring the third princess Shang Guanyan as the crown princess of Yan country. She would go to war on behalf of the emperor and take command of the western border. Accompanying her were 50,000 Black Wind cavalry and 120,000 imperial troops. This was all the troops that Chengdu could deploy at present. The rest of the troops were either taken away by the Han family and the Nangong family, or they were guarding the borders and different cities. They could not be easily mobilized. In the Guogong mansion, Gu Jiao was trying on the armor for the Black Wind King. He also had his own armor. The previous one was left in the Han family. This one was made by Guogong, and Gu Qingfeng came over and curled his lips. Our military strength is not even half of theirs. How are we going to fight? He didn't realize that he used the word we. Gu Jiao adjusted the Black Wind King's armor and said, We'll fight as we should. Gu Qingfeng was about to say something when he suddenly caught a glimpse of Gu Chongqing at the door. Big brother. Gu Chongqing's body had significantly improved. His spirit looked good. He had a long sword hanging on his waist and a bag on his back. It looked like he was going to go on a long journey. Gu Chongqing looked at his sister and said, Such a dangerous thing. Do you plan to go alone? Gu Jiao glanced at him and said, You have a more important mission. The army in the west was set to leave on the 20th of August. On the night before departure, Gu Jiao decided to go to the royal advisor hall. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Xiao Heng standing in front of her door. "What's the matter?" she asked in a daze. Xiao Heng opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he stopped. "If there's anything you want to say, just say it," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Heng lowered his eyes and handed over the 2 boxes in his hands. "What is it?" Gu Jiao asked. Xiao Heng was somewhat embarrassed. He took a deep breath and said, "The box on top is your birthday present from last year. It was prepared long ago. You went to the frontier in a hurry, so I didn't have time to give it to you. This time, I probably won't be able to celebrate your birthday with you, so I'll give you the present first." Gu Jiao opened the box. Last year's birthday present was a golden charcoal pencil. The outer shell was made of pure gold, and there was a rotating one inside that could change the charcoal core. Wow, it was the ancient version of an automatic pencil. This year's birthday present was a small booklet with gold foil and a pair of hairpins. Speaking of which, her booklet was indeed almost used up. It was not strange to give a pen and booklet, but it was rare to see a hairpin. Sure enough, she had grown up. Her gift-giving was not like stepping on a landmine like before. Gu Jiao's fingertips gently touched the white jade hairpin. "I like it very much. Thank you." Xiao Heng saw that she cherished it very much, and he knew that he had finally given the right gift this time. He secretly sighed and said, "Were you going to go out just now? You go first." "Oh, okay." Gu Jiao turned around and put away the brocade box, then stepped out of the room. Looking at her departing figure, Xiao Heng calmed himself down. He suppressed the nervousness in his eyes and called out to her, "Gu Jiao, when you come back, let's get married." Gu Jiao turned around and looked at him with a confused expression. Didn't we already get married?" Xiao Heng smiled gently. "It's not Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao's mother, it's Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao. I want to marry you, in the name of Xiao Heng." Gu Jiao's lips curved slightly. "Okay. When I come back, I'll marry you." Digression. Oh, good morning. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1059555022. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 825. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. The novel was updated more quickly. Millions of novels were free to read. There were all kinds of novels that couldn't be found online. When Gu Jiao came out of Feng's courtyard, she caught a glimpse of a little figure peeking out from behind a big tree. Gu Jiao walked over. "Jing Kong." Little Jing Kong was stunned for a moment, then he scratched his head and walked out. "I was discovered." Gu Jiao touched his little head. "Were you waiting for me?" Yes. Little Jing Kong hesitated for a moment, then nodded seriously. He raised his tender little face and looked at Gu Jiao with his big blinking eyes. His thick and curly eyelashes made him look like a little eyelash fairy. "Jiao, are you going to war again?" he asked reluctantly. "Why do you always have to go to war?" Gu Jiao didn't know how to answer this question. She knelt down on one knee in front of him, and suddenly realized that little Jing Kong had grown taller. In the past, she could easily see the top of his head from this position, but now they were really at eye level. "I can watch you grow up." "That's great." Gu Jiao picked up a leaf that had fallen on his shoulder and said softly, "Everyone has their own things to do. It's their duty to save the dying and heal the injured, to protect the country and the people." Little Jing Kong didn't quite understand. He thought for a moment, then clenched his little fists and said, "Then my responsibility must be to protect Jiao. I want to learn martial arts. I want to grow up. I'll go to war in the future. I don't need to go to Jiao." Gu Jiao touched his little head and said with a smile, "War is not fun." Little Jing Kong frowned and said, "But war is very tiring. I don't want Jiao Jiao to suffer." Gu Jiao said, "It's not tiring for me." Little Jing Kong couldn't bear to part with her, so he felt so wronged that he was about to cry. Gu Jiao hugged him for a long time before coaxing him back to his room to sleep. After the little fellow fell asleep, Gu Jiao took the carriage to the State Preceptor Hall. In the purple bamboo forest, the imperial tutor was sitting in the central room playing chess. The crown prince and the house of Han had fallen from power, and the matter of the fake monarch had come to light. Naturally, the imperial advisor hall was cleared of any wrongdoing and the lockdown was lifted. Old Mr. Meng had already left. The imperial preceptor was playing chess with himself. The disciple who was originally on duty went to do something, and Yi Qing sat on the side, respectfully waiting for the master's orders. "I'm not playing anymore." The state preceptor suddenly put the chess piece back into the box. Yi Qing hurriedly moved over and sorted the black and white chess pieces, and then packed the chessboard. At this moment, Yu He's voice came from outside the courtyard. "Master, Lord Xiao is here. Let him in." The imperial tutor said. Gu Jiao entered the bamboo hut. It was already late at night. Feather fans and colored glass lamps were hung in the corridor. The transparency of this colored glass was almost the same as the glass in his previous life. At first glance, he could tell that it was far superior to the craftsmanship of the Liang Kingdom. "When did you put it up? It's so beautiful," Gu Jiao said. "I put it up for the Moon Festival." Yi Qing invited Gu Jiao into the hut. It's usually hung up until the end of the month. The Moon Festival, also known as the Mid-Autumn Festival, was a tradition of the Great Yen to admire the moon and hang up lanterns. Gu Jiao sat down across from the imperial tutor. The state preceptor must have gone through a lot to come down to the mortal world, yet you still celebrate this kind of folk festival. The state preceptor speechlessly glanced at her. "Play a game of chess with me." He decided not to bicker with her. "Sure. Seeing that I've misunderstood you for so long, I'll play with you." Yi Qing took out the chessboard that was finally tidied up, rearranged it, and went to make a pot of fruit tea. The fruit tea had its own fruity fragrance, but it wasn't too sweet. It was very suitable for Gu Jiao's taste. "You play black," the state preceptor said. "Okay." Gu Jiao didn't refuse. She played black first. She put a piece on the small eye in the upper right corner of the chessboard. The state preceptor looked at this piece, and was in a trance for a moment. "Why aren't you playing?" Gu Jiao blinked and asked. "Don't tell me you don't know how to play?" "Who said I don't know how to play?" The state preceptor coldly picked up a white piece and put it on the chessboard. "I'm here to get the small medicine box," Gu Jiao said. "By the way, I want to say goodbye to you." During this time, Gu Chongqing had been hiding in the intensive care unit to secretly practice the pirated Death Warrior's secret manual. Gu Jiao turned a blind eye and kept the small medicine box in the secret room. Now that Gu Chongqing had left, she should also take the small medicine box to battle. The state preceptor snorted. "You still came to say goodbye to me, how rare." Gu Jiao put down a black piece. "Why don't you clarify?" The state preceptor's hand that was holding the piece paused. This question came out of nowhere, and Yi Qing was confused. However, the state preceptor understood what Gu Jiao was referring to after a short moment of thought. "There's no need," he said. The tragedy of the Xianyuan family had already happened. It wasn't something that could be exchanged for the lives of so many members of the Xianyuan family, just by saying that it wasn't him who leaked the news. Moreover, it was indeed his oversight that year. He actually allowed a spy from the Jin country to infiltrate the state preceptor hall and become his most trusted disciple. The state preceptor didn't ask how she knew the truth. After putting down a piece, he calmly said, "Tianshan Pass and Yinmen Pass aren't far apart. The armies of the Jin and Liang countries might have the opportunity to meet each other. You should be careful of Jin country's Gong Sunyu and Liang country's Chu Feipeng. Both of them are divine generals with illustrious military achievements." In the dream, the 7 sons of Xianyuan, Taoist Qingfeng, and Mu Qingchen all fell at the hands of Gong Sunyu. As for Chu Feiping, he was also a tough nut to crack. He was the one who led the army to encircle the Black Wind Cavalry that was trapped in Mount Liang. The Black Wind Cavalry fought to the last man before finally dying under the rain of arrows from the Chu family army. Even if the state preceptor didn't say anything, she would still pay special attention to them. Since the state preceptor said it, it meant that he was sincerely thinking for her. I will pay attention, Gu Jiao said. The state preceptor was used to seeing her choking people half to death. Now that she was suddenly so obedient, he didn't know what to do. You lost. Gu Jiao looked at the chessboard and said. Yi Qing was slightly stunned and stretched his neck to look at the chessboard. The state preceptor really did lose. Yi Qing was even more shocked. Master's chess skills were very exquisite. He was unrivaled under Elder Meng, yet he actually lost to Xiao Lulang. From the situation on the chessboard, there was no such thing as master giving way. Therefore, Xiao Liulang's chess skills were really exquisite. Yi Qing looked at his master again. Master's eyes didn't have the slightest bit of surprise, as if it was something expected. Master. Could it be that he played chess with Xiao Lulang? Or could it be that Master learned about Xiao Liulang's chess skills from Elder Meng? Yi Qing was more and more unable to understand the relationship between his master and Xiao Lulang. Sometimes, he would have the illusion that they had known each other for a long time. Gu Jiao stood up. Okay, the chess game is over. I should go. The safety of Xingdu. I'll have to trouble the state preceptor hall. The state preceptor calmly said. Okay. This was her third purpose for coming to the state preceptor hall. She wanted the state preceptor to promise to protect Xingdu. Everyone had left, and Xingdu had become an empty shell. The state preceptor and Xianyuan Li were good friends, and the state preceptor hall was created by the Lord of Shadows of the Xianyuan family. No one could tell how loyal the state preceptor was to the monarch. Therefore, Gu Jiao needed his personal guarantee. The state preceptor looked at Gu Jiao without blinking. I will guard Xingdu and wait for your return. Gu Jiao waved her finger coolly and stepped into the boundless night. The autumn wind blew into the purple bamboo forest, and the glazed lanterns under the corridor gently rotated and swayed. In the study, the portrait of the general wearing black armor and holding a red tasseled spear was blown open with a snap. But this time, the person in the portrait had a face. After coming out of the state preceptor hall, Gu Jiao went back to the duke's mansion. She had to go to the barracks after packing her things. She would set off with the army tomorrow morning. Dukan was waiting for her at the door of Feng's courtyard. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan were also peeking at her in the room. Dukan came to say goodbye to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was going to the battlefield, so he had to leave. On the surface, he was going to negotiate, but in fact he was going to cover for his great-aunt and son-in-law, and also meet Xiao Heng's biological father. He had to see what kind of person his future in-laws were. He had heard from Gu Chengfeng that Xiao Heng married her under another person's identity, so strictly speaking, this marriage was not valid. As for their marriage, the two families had to carefully discuss it. The two did not say too many words of farewell. Gu Jiao told him some things to pay attention to during his rehabilitation. And he also told Gu Jiao to take care of herself. Gu Jiao said, I will. I'm still waiting to see you stand up. Duke An's eyes flashed with a smile. He wrote on the armrest, I will. I will definitely stand up and send you off in a glorious way. So you must come back safely. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan did not want to leave. The two little men said that they wanted to stay in Chengdu and return to Zhao country together after Gu Jiao won the war. Gu Jiao did not agree. If I leave, your brother-in-law will leave, and great-aunt and son-in-law will also leave. Who will take care of you? Not to mention Madame Nan and Master Lu. It's not easy for them to come. We can't trouble them anymore. Gu Yan said, we can take care of ourselves. Gu Xiaoshan did not listen to his sister for the first time. Yes. We are adults. Gu Jiao pinched their faces. Adults? You haven't even grown hair yet. Humph. Gu Yan said. I'm only half a day younger than you. Gu Jiao made up her mind. The three little men must go back to Zhao country with her great-aunt and son-in-law. Gu Yan said with a depressed face. It's okay if you don't let us stay, but at least take this. Then he took out a box and put it on the table. And mine. Gu Xiaoshan also took out his own. These were the hidden weapons that Master Lu made for them. Last time they secretly put them next to Gu Jiao's pillow, and Gu Jiao put them back. Gu Jiao narrowed her eyes and looked at the two. You two even learned how to negotiate. Who taught you the art of speech? If they had asked her to accept this at the beginning, she would not have agreed. But the two of them first made an even more outrageous request. In comparison, this small request was very insignificant. Gu Yan raised his eyebrows and snorted. No one taught them. They are self-taught. They are gifted. Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. It seemed that these days, the two of them eavesdropped on us doing bad things. They learned all these little tricks. In the end, Gu Jiao accepted it, because this was the only way they could feel a little relieved. After tidying up, Gu Jiao went to her great-aunt's room one last time. Her great-aunt was asleep. Gu Jiao did not wake her up. She walked over and gently put a jar of pickled candied fruit on the table. Then she went to the bed and whispered in her great-aunt's ear. You can only eat 3 candied fruits a day. You can't eat more. When you finish eating all of them, I will come back. The night in August was a little cold. Gu Jiao pulled the quilt over her great-aunt and tiptoed out of the room. The armor made a sound of friction. She quickly pressed it down and looked back at her great-aunt. She sighed and closed the door. In the darkness, Empress Dowager Zhuang slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were red. She shed a tear and closed her eyes as if nothing had happened. At 3 in the morning, the Black Wind camp began to break camp. 50,000 cavalrymen were about to embark on the journey to the west. The imperial edict to set out had only been issued 3 days ago, but Gu Jiao had given the order 10 days in advance to prepare to break camp. Thus, everything had already been prepared. Among all the troops, the Black Wind camp was the most unhurried and orderly. Gu Jiao came to her tent. Teacher Hu had been waiting for a long time. When he saw her, Teacher Hu walked over with small steps. The weather had turned cold, but he still did not throw away the cattail leaf fan in his hand. He bowed and said, Your Excellency, the 6 commanders have just come to report that the 3 main camps have been assembled and are waiting for your orders. Gu Jiao said, Take me to see them. Teacher Hu hurriedly said, Yes. All the training grounds were occupied by horses and cavalrymen. The vanguard camp had 10,000 soldiers, the assault camp had 25,000, and the reserve camp had 15,000. The reserve camp was mainly responsible for supplies, logistics, medical treatment, and backup Black Wind cavalrymen. Due to the disparity in military strength, even some Black Wind cavalrymen under 3 years old were brought along. The youngest one was only 2.5 years old. When the horse trainer saw Gu Jiao walk over, his face darkened. It was obvious that he disliked this arrangement. Teacher Hu coughed and explained, We have no choice. There are too many supplies. In order to ensure the combat strength of the adult horses, the provisions have to be pulled by these young horses. 2.5 years old horses were already able to work. However, this was not ordinary work. It was a journey of thousands of miles, full of unknown dangers. They might not be able to come back after going. The baby horses were very excited and jumped behind the horse king. They were young and did not know what was waiting for them. Gu Jiao took a deep look at the ponies jumping around and said, Leave the ponies under the age of 3. The horse king was speechless. The horse trainer looked at Gu Jiao in astonishment. Gu Jiao did not seem to notice his gaze. She patted the horse king's neck and turned to patrol the other camps. She could feel that everyone was looking at her with unfamiliar eyes. Even though she had taken the position of commander, she was still not truly accepted by them. They listened to her orders not because they respected her, but because it was their duty to follow orders. When Gu Jiao finished her patrol, it was already 5 in the morning. After entering autumn, the night was not so bad, but the sky was still dark. Gu Jiao and the Black Wind King stood in the wind. She patted the armor on the Black Wind King's horse and asked softly, Are you ready, boss? The 16-year-old Black Wind King's aura was fully unleashed. The war horses on the training ground felt the Black Wind King's fighting spirit. It was as if they were summoned with endless fighting spirit. Their eyes and breathing were different. The cavalrymen looked at their mounts in astonishment. Such a situation had never happened before. However, this was not the most shocking thing. They saw the newly appointed Commander Xiao take something from the Black Wind King's saddle and reach out to Teacher Hu. "Give me the flagpole," Gu Jiao said. Hey. Yes. Teacher Hu hurriedly brought the empty flagpole over with both hands. "Madam here. You mentioned it to me last time. I have already prepared it." He did not understand why Madam wanted the flagpole. Wasn't the Great Yin Kingdom's flag already carried by the vanguard camp? In the next second, Gu Jiao unfolded the cloth in her hand with a snap. No, that was not a cloth. It was a flag. It was white with black edges, and in the middle was an eagle soaring in the sky. "Eagle, it's the eagle flag." Someone in the cavalry camp could not help but exclaim. The eagle flag was originally the insignia of the Black Wind camp. Later, it gradually became the insignia of the entire Xianyuan family. The eagle flag also became the commander's flag of the Xianyuan family. Ever since the Xianyuan family was destroyed, the eagle flag was also destroyed. Gu Jiao put the flag on the flagpole and held it with both hands. She nimbly mounted the horse. She did not say anything unnecessary. She only carried the Xianyuan family's commander's flag with a determined gaze. The old subordinates of the Xianyuan family all had tears in their eyes. A 60-year-old general sitting on the back of a horse suddenly burst into tears. "Wenren-chong, it's time to leave. What are you looking at?" Outside the reserve camp, a soldier reminded Wenren-chong, who was staring blankly. Wenren-chong did not reply. He stared blankly at the youth on the back of a horse. The youth's shoulders were still very young, but he was resolutely carrying the Xianyuan family's commander's flag. He was carrying a heavy burden that should not be carried at his age. He was going to protect the country that the Xianyuan family had protected with their blood. What was he doing? "Wenren-chong, what are you doing? Wenren-chong, stand up. Don't lose to me. I am only 16. If you lose to me, you will lose face. Wenren-chong, I Xianyuan-chong, do not like anyone. You better not fail to live up to my trust. Wenren-chong, do you have eyes or not? The arrow is already at your head. Don't you know how to dodge? Wenren-chong, kill your way out. Don't die here." Wenren-chong's memories swept through his mind. He could not differentiate between Xianyuan-chong and the youth on the horse. The Xianyuan family's commander's flag fluttered in the wind under the sunlight. Gu Jiao sternly said, "All Black Wind cavalry, listen to my orders. We will follow the crown princess to attack the enemy. We do not know the dangers of this trip. We do not know if you will live or die. If you do not want to go, you can stay. I will not punish you." No one would stay. Gu Jiao retracted her gaze and raised the commander's flag. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. "Let's go." Digression. This part was a bit difficult to write. Khan Ka was bald from head to toe. He could not sleep to the point of doubting his life. 2 monthly tickets to cheer me on. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1059344093. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 826. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The sky was still dark and the east was gray. It seemed that today was going to be a cloudy day. Chengdu had suddenly cooled down after entering autumn. Although it wasn't a bad thing, for the people of Chengdu who were used to the hot summer, there was an indescribable strangeness. The army was setting out today, and the weather was like this. It didn't seem like a good sign. Many people thought pessimistically. In a shabby alley outside Chengdu, Li Shun didn't sleep for the entire night. He sat in a daze for an entire night, holding an iron plate that was almost worn flat in his hand. It was not until he heard the sound of someone turning over in the next room that he put away the iron plate, lifted the curtain, and went to the kitchen. He cooked a pot of millet porridge for Li Shun's mother, steamed a few steamed buns and boiled 2 eggs. Since the last time the people in the barracks sent him his retirement pay and related compensation, he had repaid his family's debt. He still had some money left, so he didn't need to be as tight as before. He couldn't bear to eat the eggs, so he brought them all to Li Shun's mother. When he arrived at Li Shun's mother's room, she was already up. She was dressed neatly, her hair was combed and shiny, and she even put on her wedding hairpin. "Mother, you." He wasn't used to Li Shun's mother suddenly being dressed so formally. Li Shun's mother smiled and said, "Sit down and eat." "Okay." Li Shun sat down beside Li Shun's mother and handed her a spoon. He took her other hand and let her touch the porridge bowl. Li Shun's mother laughed and said, "Okay, it's not like I can't eat." Li Shun peeled 2 boiled eggs for his mother. Li Shun's mother skillfully took one and put it in his bowl. "You eat too. Don't just eat me." "I've already eaten," Li Shun said. "Mother's eyes are blind, not her heart," Li Shun's mother said. Li Shun opened his mouth. "Mother." Li Shun's mother smiled sadly. "I've already packed your things. After breakfast, you can leave." Li Shun was stunned. He turned his head and looked around his mother's room. Sure enough, he saw a bundle on the bed. He was astonished. "Mother, you," Li Du's mother smiled and said. "When you were cooking, I went to your room to clean up. Did you see if I left anything behind? Don't wait until we leave the city. We won't be able to get it even if we want to." Li Shun took a steamed bun and said, "I didn't say I was going out of the city." Mrs. Li said, "You can fool your mother, but can you fool yourself? Ever since your friend from the barracks came, you've been taking out that iron plate every day to look at it. Mother can't see it, but mother can touch it. The edges and corners of the iron plate are almost flattened by your touch." The last sentence was obviously an exaggeration, but every time Mother Li went to his room, she could feel the lingering warmth of the metal pendant. Once or twice was a coincidence, but after a while it meant that he was constantly taking out the metal pendant to reminisce about it. Mother Li sighed. Mother isn't someone who doesn't know what's going on outside. Mother has heard that the Han family has fallen, and the Black Wind Cavalry has changed owners. To be able to return your retirement money, it should be a wise master. Son, you should go. We can't let the bastards of Jin and Liang bully us. Li Shun's heart skipped a beat. He looked at his mother and said, "Mother." Mrs. Li blamed herself and said, "Mother has been holding you back all these years. Mother didn't go to school and can't read many words, but Mother remembers what you said before you joined the army. You said you wanted to serve the imperial court and be the bravest general of Great Yen. If it wasn't for Mother, you would have done it long ago." Li Shun hurriedly shook his head and said, "No, Mother, I..." Mrs. Li patted the back of his hand and said, "Okay, don't say any more. If you continue, we won't be able to make it in time. Hurry up and eat. Don't worry about Mother. Mother can take care of herself." "Mother." "Go, son, do what you should do." Li Shun took a bite of the steamed bun. His throat was swollen and his eyes were dry. He tried his best to hold back his tears. No one could understand the struggle in his heart. This was his mother who gave birth to him and raised him. His father passed away early, and it was his mother who painstakingly raised him. But in the end, he couldn't fulfill his filial duties in front of his mother. "Mother!" He knelt on the ground with a plop, his forehead touching the ground as he heavily kowtowed 3 times. His tears dripped onto the ground with a resounding sound. "Your son is unfilial. Your son can't repay Mother's kindness in raising me." He didn't know if he could come back alive from the border. "Just pretend that you didn't give birth to this unfilial son. In the next life, I will be your son again." Crane Restaurant. Zhao Dengfeng was called to the kitchen to cook before the sun rose. Ever since Gu Jiao forcefully bought his restaurant, he was forced to be a cook. Every day he was either cutting or cooking, and today was no exception. But today he was particularly absent-minded. The Han family and the Nangong family openly rebelled and fled to the border. They colluded with the Jin and Liang kingdoms and opened the border gate. Even the crown princess, a woman, had to go to war on behalf of the emperor. The crown princess's martial arts had been crippled long ago, and she was no different from an ordinary person. No, there was still something different. An ordinary person's back would not be pierced with a few iron nails. All the troops that could be mobilized in Chengdu were gathering at the West City Gate. Mount Hilltown also sent a troop over. The deputy general of that troop was a frequent customer of Crane Restaurant. He was a guy who was full of nonsense and liked to brag and flatter. He had a lot of debts at Crane Restaurant and never had the intention to pay them back. Letting this kind of person go to war, wouldn't it be sending the rebels to their deaths? The more Zhao Dingfeng thought about it, the angrier he got. His kitchen knife swished. Beside him, Chef Zheng noticed that something was wrong. He frowned and asked, "Hey, Chef Zhao, why are you so angry? Who offended you? Don't break your knife." Zhao Dingfeng said angrily, "It's none of your business." Chef Zheng was shocked by his raised kitchen knife. Thinking that this guy had killed people before, he didn't dare to argue with him. He rolled his eyes and walked away. The messy sound of horse hooves came from the street. Why was it messy? Actually, to an ordinary person, it sounded quite orderly. But Zhao Dingfeng was a cavalryman from the Black Wind camp. He would despise even a horse's hooves. How did you lead your soldiers? How did you train your horses? With this kind of riding skill, the formation will be messed up before the battle. Chop chop chop. I'll chop. I'll chop. I'll chop 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 chop. Chop your grandpa. I won't chop anymore. Zhao Dingfeng smashed the kitchen knife on the chopping board and turned to leave. At the West City Gate, the monarch led the civil and military officials to send the soldiers off. Earlier, there was a rumor among the people that the monarch was scared out of his wits and suffered a stroke on the spot because of the invasion of Jin and Liang. This news was a fatal blow to the morale and the people's hearts. It was originally a war with a slim chance of victory. If even the monarch of a country was scared out of his wits, then the great Yin kingdom would really be destroyed. But today, all the people saw the emperor in high spirits. The emperor showed up and used his actions to tell the whole world that the monarch of the great Yin kingdom was not scared out of his wits. Instead, he was filled with endless fighting spirit. The old monarch reappeared the great Yin kingdom's eagle flag and reignited the almost extinguished confidence of the people. Maybe this war could really be won? Must win. After watching the crown princess and Gu Jiao lead the army out of the West City Gate, Xiao Heng, who was behind the crowd, said to Long Yi beside him, "We should also set off." Long Yi held a box of charcoal pencil and stared blankly for a long time, until he could no longer see the back view of Gu Jiao. Xiao Heng and his Greytance group all went east. After leaving Liaozhou, both sides separated into two groups. Xiao Heng, Long Yi and Wang Su's army often went to the northeast Blue Snow Pass. As for Ongwa Duke, his Greytance group as well as Feng Wuxiu's army, they went to the southeast Redwater Pass. Taoist priest Qing Feng also followed. After Shangguan Yan and Gu Jiao's group left Chengdu, the first news they received from the border was from Yuzhou, which was 100 miles away. At that time, they had just set up camp outside a village. The kind-hearted villagers invited them to live in the village, but Shangguan Yan refused. Shangguan Yan sat in her tent. On her left side was the general of infantry, Wang Man. He was Wang Su's uncle and was a veteran. Wang family was not a military aristocratic family. In Wang Man's generation, he was the only one who learned martial arts. And in Wang Su's generation, only Wang Su inherited his martial arts. But in those years, Wang Man had followed Xianyuanli to battle, and had the experience of fighting against the armies of Jin and Liang. Therefore, the monarch suggested to bring this person, and conferred him the title of General Jianwei. He was the highest-ranking general in the camp. He had many military merits and was rather conceited. He almost didn't look at anyone other than the crown princess, especially the youngest Gu Jiao. On his other side sat General Wei Junting of the archery camp. He was 38 years old this year. On the right side of Shangguan Yin were Gu Jiao and Mu Qingchen. Mu Qingchen was the personal bodyguard of the crown princess. He was mainly responsible for the safety of the crown princess, and had no official position in the camp. Gu Chengfeng didn't come for the time being. Before the monarch recovered, he had to play the role of the monarch and stay in Qingdu to stabilize the morale of the army and the people. Shang Guanyan said. Just now, I sent an urgent secret letter. Everyone has read it. I don't know what everyone thinks about it. Wang Man said angrily. Humph. The Nangong family has gone too far. They actually used the name of justice to fool the people at the border. It's really shameless. There were not many wars in Qingdu. Most of the things about the Xianyuan family were heard, but the border had experienced countless wars. Everyone saw how the Xianyuan family fought to the death to protect the people at the border. After the Xianyuan family was exterminated, the border was filled with whales. The Nangong family took advantage of this. After coming to the border, they first announced that the monarch had exterminated the Xianyuan family because of a prophecy, and then lied that they had just received the news. It turned out that they had been deceived by the monarch all these years. They wanted to avenge the Xianyuan family. What's more, they claimed that there were still people alive in the Xianyuan family, and that they were protecting them in the dark. They were willing to fight for the descendants of the Xianyuan family. Even if they had to sacrifice their lives, they wanted to choose a real monarch for the great Yin kingdom. The people were persuaded. They opened the city gate and directly welcomed the Nangong family's army into the city. Many of the guards in the city were former subordinates of the Xianyuan family. Since they were here to avenge the Xianyuan family, everyone was on the same side. The Nangong family took over Zuyang City in the Yanmen Pass almost effortlessly. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/896422_8964226/1059145660. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikago mobile version website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 827. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. Nangong family used the state preceptor hall's prophecy to clear the obstacles for themselves. She had to say, this trick seemed to be nothing new, but it was very useful. In ancient times, to revolt, the safest operation was to borrow the name of heaven. The husband is the boat, and the people are the water. The water can carry the boat, but it can also overturn it. Never underestimate the power of the people's hearts. Shang Guanyan's eyes passed the old General Wang Man and fell on Wei Junting's face. What does General Wei think? Wei Junting said with a dignified look. Nangong family has seized a wave of opportunity. If this continues, we will lose more cities. It's easy for them to take it, but it will be difficult for us to take it back. The border cities were carefully designed to prevent the invasion of foreign enemies. They were easy to defend and difficult to attack. In addition, Nangong family's army was waiting for the exhausted, so their combat power would be better. Shang Guanyan looked at Gu Jiao again. Commander Xiao, what do you think? Gu Jiao looked at the map on the table and pointed to the west of Yanmen Pass. The Liang country's garrison has advanced 100 feet to the border. They have already crossed the border. The reason why they haven't broken through Yanmen Pass is because their military strength is not strong enough. They are the same as us. The Imperial Army is on the way. We must seize the opportunity and recapture Chuyang before the Liang country's Imperial Army arrives at the border. Shang Guanyan nodded in agreement. Wang Man disdainfully snorted. A child is a child. Who can't think of such a simple method? Why do you think I didn't say it? Gu Jiao seriously thought for a moment. Are you afraid? Ignorant brat. Wang Man slammed his palm on the table and leaped up. Wei Junting hurriedly got up and stopped him. General Wang. General Wang. Calm down. Calm down. Shang Guanyin looked at Wang Man and said, General Wang, do you want to use force in front of this one? You dare to scare my daughter-in-law, you're tired of living. Wei Junting continued to be the peacemaker. Commander Xiao and Great General Wang are just joking. Great General Wang is a magnanimous person. Please don't bicker with the younger generation. Humph. Because the crown princess was present, Wang Man was given a way out, but he still reluctantly came down. The two of them sat back on their cushions. Shang Guanyin knew Gu Jiao very well. She knew that Gu Jiao would not talk nonsense. Since she proposed it, it meant that she already had a plan in mind. However, what Wang Man said was not wrong. This plan did not work. Shang Guanyin pointed to the map and said, We are now in this place. If we rush to Ziyang City, it will take us a month. If we force our way, it will take us more than 20 days. The Liang Kingdom's army is not that far from the border. They will arrive in less than 20 days. Gu Jiao said, According to the speed of the whole army, we can't catch up, but the Black Wind Cavalry can. The Black Wind Cavalry will only need half a month to reach Ziyang. Shang Guanyin was slightly surprised. You want to force the army? The cavalry's speed was faster than the infantry, but in order to ensure the horses' combat power, they can't ride too fast. If they rush, it will take at least 20 days, half a month. It will overdraft the horses' physical strength. No, we still have to force the army. Gu Jiao pointed to the map and said, If we pass through the mountain range in Liuzhou, it will be a straight line. We can reach Ziyang's Feng County. Wang Man was dissatisfied. That mountain range is very dangerous. So far, no army has ever passed through it. I passed through it, Gu Jiao said in her heart. In her dream, the Xianyuan army paid a great price to pass through that mountain range. This time, she knew how to avoid those dangers. Wang Man cupped his hands and said, Your Highness the Crown Princess, this is not a trivial matter. I don't care what means he used to become the Black Wind Cavalry's commander, but war is not a child's play. He can't just take it for granted and let the entire Black Wind Battalion be buried in his hands. After all, the Black Wind Battalion was their most powerful force. If this kid doesn't know how to command, then let someone else take command. Don't waste such a good military resource. Shang Guanyin turned her head and looked at Gu Jiao. Are you sure? Mu Qingchen's eyes slightly moved. He heard the crown princess's trust in Gu Jiao. This made him puzzled. I'm sure, Gu Jiao said with certainty. Shang Guanyin nodded. That's good. Wang Man's face changed. Your Highness the Crown Princess, Shang Guanyin said. This one has made up her mind. General Wang, you don't need to persuade me. This one will bear all the consequences. At this point, even if Wang Man wanted to stop her, he couldn't pull out his sword and force the Crown Princess to change her mind. Humph. He stood up, with one hand behind his back, and the other hand patted his thigh back and forth twice to vent his dissatisfaction. Then with a cold face he left. Gu Jiao stared at him. You're simply treating the battlefield as a child's play. Xiao Lulang is like this, and the Crown Princess is also like this. I really don't know why His Majesty sent a woman to fight on his behalf. Is there no prince in the royal family? Li Wang, Su Wang, and Wang. Which one of them is not better than a crippled crown princess? Wang Man said this after he left the tent. But the people in the tent had good hearing. Wei Junting smiled awkwardly. Shang Guanyan's expression didn't change much. She said to Wei Junting, You can leave. This one has something to say to Commander Xiao. Yes, this one will take his leave. Wei Junting got up and saluted, then turned and left the tent. Mu Qingchen also got up. Shang Guanyin said, Mu Qingchen, you stay. This one also has something to tell you. Half an hour later, Mu Qingchen and Gu Jiao came out of Shang Guanyan's tent. At this time, the sky was completely dark. The soldiers made a fire and made dinner. After eating, they rested and patrolled. The two walked on the path in the middle of the tent. Teacher who greeted them, Darren, have you had dinner? This one left some steamed buns for you. I've eaten. Gu Jiao said, Leave it here. I'll eat it tomorrow morning. Teacher who was stunned. Ah yes. How can I let you eat it? Can't I eat it myself? Mu Qingchen frowned and looked at Gu Jiao. I really don't understand you. Gu Jiao glanced at him strangely. You don't need to understand me. Mu Qingchen was choked by her words. Fortunately, he was used to it. While walking side by side with her, he said, I apologize to you about Nangong Li. Although the fact that Nangong family colluded with the crown prince and framed the real imperial grandson was not announced to the world, as the legitimate son of one of the 10 great families, he had heard a little about it. However, he didn't know that the real imperial grandson was Xiao Heng and Sheng Guanqing. Gu Jiao, oh. Mu Qingchen said with shame. Did you kill Nangong Li because you found out his conspiracy? Forget it, it doesn't matter. Because of this matter, I misunderstood you as a person with ulterior motives. It's my fault. In fact, Gu Jiao didn't care about his misunderstanding, but he apologized so sincerely that if she didn't say anything, he would keep apologizing. Gu Jiao scratched her head. I forgive you. Mu Qingchen smiled and stopped to look at her. Then are we still friends? Gu Jiao hesitated for a moment, rolled her eyes and reluctantly said, Yes. What do you mean by yes? Mu Qingchen was startled. Gu Jiao spread her hands and said, I'm your boss now. You can't overstep your superiors and subordinates. You have to stick to your duty. Mu Qingchen. Sheng Guanyan was worried about her dear daughter-in-law. So she sent Mu Qingchen, who was supposed to protect her, to Gu Jiao's side. She asked him to go with Gu Jiao to attack Ziyang City. Gu Jiao was the commander. He was her follower. Gu Jiao imitated Wang Man's official gait and strode forward. With one hand behind her back, the other hand impatiently patted her thigh back and forth twice. Humph. She didn't even let out a humph. Mu Qingchen. Before dawn the next day, Gu Jiao ordered all the Black Wind cavalry to break camp. Sheng Guanyin originally insisted on going with Gu Jiao, but was rejected by Gu Jiao. Sheng Guanyan's back was pierced with 8 vertebral screws, so she had to wear armor when going out. The rapid march of the cavalry would drag her down. In addition, as the crown princess, she could collect more local troops along the way. Even if she didn't have enough troops, she could at least buy more provisions. This was going to be a tough battle, so the provisions must be provided. 3 days before the Black Wind cavalry set out, the weather was fine. On the 4th day, the army encountered a sudden autumn rain. Fortunately, Gu Jiao knew how to observe the weather and arranged for everyone to take shelter from the rain in advance. On the 11th day, the Black Wind cavalry arrived at the foot of the Looting Mountain Range, the largest mountain range in Liuzhou. The map was useless here. Because no one had entered this mountain range, naturally there was no detailed map. Everyone was on standby. Along the way, their impression of Gu Jiao had changed, but they still had a lot of reservations. In the past, the Han family's commanders were more beautiful than Gu Jiao, but in the end, what happened? The Han family rebelled. They admitted that the redisplay of the Xianyuan family's commander flag was really exciting. But they had been disappointed too many times, so they had already calmed down from the initial excitement. Perhaps this was just a way to boost morale. Who would really fight for the Xianyuan family? Even the Nangong family was using the Xianyuan family's name for their own benefit. Everyone looked at this new commander, waiting for him to continue his nonsense. They wanted to see if this little commander would be so anxious that he would cry if he was trapped inside and couldn't get out. Mu Qingchen looked around and whispered, That they don't seem to trust you. Gu Jiao said. Oh. Gu Jiao said to Mu Qingchen, We have 3 days to pass through the mountain range. After that, the army will rest for a day. We won't stop in Feng County, and will directly attack the city. 3 days, is it enough? Mu Qingchen looked at the endless mountain range, and thought that they might not be able to walk out in 13 days. No wonder the cavalry didn't trust him. Even he felt that it was difficult enough. Gu Jiao said, Whether it's enough or not, we'll know when we get there. Boss, let's go. The forest was filled with the howls of wild beasts. The horses could instinctively sense the danger in the forest. However, just like how Gu Jiao trusted the Black Wind King wholeheartedly, the Black Wind King also trusted his companions without reservation. The Black Wind King raised his front hooves and jumped over the 6 feet wide ditch easily. He stepped into the dense forest without looking back. Digression. Black Wind Cavalry Baby 1. Boss is leaving. Black Wind Cavalry Baby 2. Then shall we go too? The cavalry who didn't want to go. You may not believe me, but my horse has its own thoughts. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896426/1059134131. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 828. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. The cavalrymen didn't want to go, but their mounts all wanted to follow the Black Wind King. Horses were very sensitive animals. Otherwise, they wouldn't sleep standing up all year round. Changes in the environment had a great impact on horses. Fortunately, they weren't ordinary horses. They were the strongest and bravest Black Wind cavalrymen of the Six Nations. They had received the most rigorous obstacle training in the military camp. This width wasn't difficult for them. They could basically cross it with a run-up. However, some of the 3-year-old ponies hadn't been trained enough and couldn't adapt to this complicated environment. The ponies at the end of the line were hesitant to move forward. Under the repeated instructions of the horse trainer, a pony finally jumped. However, it wasn't confident enough and didn't use its full strength. Only its front hooves landed on the opposite side. It panicked. The Black Wind King turned back and jumped into the ditch. It used its head to push the pony down. The little Black Wind cavalrymen at the back seemed to have found something to rely on. They also gathered their courage and jumped. The Black Wind King guarded the ditch and sent them over one by one. When all the little Black Wind cavalrymen had crossed the ditch, the Black Wind King came out of the ditch full of mud and brambles. Its legs were scratched a few times by the brambles. Gu Jiao treated its wounds and continued on the road. The 3 camps marched in the order of the vanguard, assault, and reserve camps. When Ren Chong was from the reserve camp, he rode his horse and walked at the back of the line. As he walked, he used a charcoal pencil to record the terrain and route in the forest. "Hey, give me some water." Zhao Dingfeng rode his horse to his side and stretched out his hand. "No." Wen Rencheng didn't even raise his head. "You." Zhao Dingfeng glared at him and turned to the cavalryman on the other side. Li Shun. Li Shun ignored him and urged his horse to go to the front. Zhao Dingfeng gritted his teeth. "Aren't you all small soldiers? You're ignoring me?" When Gu Jiao wanted to put the 3 of them in important positions, they were either not in the barracks or did not return to the barracks. Now they had returned to the barracks, but they were starting from small soldiers. Gu Jiao took the lead and led the way. Teacher Hu and Mu Qingchen followed behind her under the scorching sun. Gu Jiao suddenly stopped and looked around. Mu Qingchen asked, "What are you looking for?" "Little stream." Gu Jiao said, "There should be a stream nearby. If we follow the stream upstream, we'll be able to cross the mountain range." After a pause, she said, "Go and catch a deer. I want it alive. Don't hurt it." It was not difficult to catch a deer, but it was not easy to not injure it at all. Mu Qingchen fell to the ground and was covered in dirt before he finally managed to bring a deer back. Gu Jiao licked the salt for the deer for a while, and then let it go. Gu Jiao patted Black Wind King's neck and said, "Boss, follow it." He had to follow the deer stealthily and not scare it away. The Black Wind King lightened his steps and followed the deer's aura from afar. Not long after, he arrived at a small stream. The deer was drinking with its head lowered. Gu Jiao brought the large group over and walked along the stream. From time to time, she would pick 2 wild fruits or 2 stalks of medicinal herbs. The whole army was waiting for the little commander to get lost and cry. They imagined the little commander's appearance. Ah! What should we do? What should we do? I can't find the way. We're doomed. It's dark. The wolves are coming. I'm so scared. Snakes. There are poisonous snakes on the trees. In reality, they saw the appearance of a certain commander. She knocked out a tiger with one punch, grabbed a poisonous snake and used it as a rope. She rode Black Wind King and drove away the wolves with a torch. She led them safely through the swamp and successfully avoided the miasma forest. Even the most experienced soldier did not have her ability to survive in the forest. Gu Jiao found a suitable open space near the stream. All right, we'll camp here tonight. Chung Fugui, Zhao Lei, you two take turns to keep watch tonight. Chung Fugui and Zhao Lei were the left and right commanders of the vanguard. The two of them cupped their hands and replied, yes. Gu Jiao said again, also tell the others not to light a fire. The two of them replied again, yes. Since they could not light a fire, they could only eat the cold pancakes. The temperature difference in the western part of Great Yen was huge. In order to prevent the food from going bad, the cooks baked the pancakes until they were dry and hard. After a few bites, their cheeks were sore. When they swallowed, they could feel something hard scraping their throats. Everyone drank the cold water from the stream and scraped the hard biscuits from their throats. No one complained, and no one wasted any of their food. Gu Jiao sat by the stream. She ate the same food as the soldiers. However, the soldiers huddled together and did not get close to her. She looked a little lonely. Everyone looked at the skinny and immature figure. For some reason, they suddenly felt a little uncomfortable in their hearts. The Black Wind Cavalry finally reached the upstream after 2 days. There was a wide river here. At the end of the river was a waterfall that was hundreds of feet high. The closer to the waterfall, the narrower and shallower the river was, making it easier to cross. However, the river was a little turbulent today. If they were not careful, they could be washed down by the current. Boss. Gu Jiao pulled the reins. Can we cross? The Black Wind King took a few steps back. Its muscles suddenly tightened, and it jumped into the water. The water was not deep at this time. It only reached its knees. It calmly walked across. The rest of the Black Wind Cavalry also jumped into the river one after another. Under the comfort of the cavalry, they passed through the turbulent river safely. However, no one expected that when it was the last few Black Wind Cavalry's turn, the current suddenly became more turbulent. A huge wave came and washed a Black Wind Cavalry that was dragging the rations down. The Black Wind King dashed out and bit on the reins. The Black Wind King tried its best to withstand the turbulent river. It used all its strength to pull the Black Wind Cavalry up bit by bit. Both horses came ashore. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. Although the Black Wind Cavalry's life was saved, the rations on its back fell down. It lowered its head in disappointment. The Black Wind King rubbed its wet head against the Black Wind Cavalry's, as if it was comforting it silently. The army continued to move forward. This small episode did not affect the army too much, except for the Black Wind Cavalry. After losing its rations, it listlessly followed at the back of the army. It was not until Gu Jiao put the herbs she picked along the way on its back that it cheered up again. It took them 2 days to go up the mountain. It was much faster to go down the mountain. They only took 1 day to reach the foot of the mountain. Mu Qingchen sighed in amazement. It really only took 3 days. Traveling consumed a lot of energy. All the soldiers and horses were very tired. However, they only had 1 day to rest. After tomorrow, they had to prepare for the siege. Midnight. The Black Wind Cavalry's scout that Gu Jiao sent out returned. At this moment, Gu Jiao was sitting under a tree, discussing the siege plan with the 6 commanders. Mu Qingchen was also there. Speak. Gu Jiao looked at the scout and said. The scout cupped his hands and said, Commander, there is good news and bad news. Gu Jiao was holding a tree branch with a map in her hand. She looked at him and said, Tell me the bad news first. The scout said, The bad news is that we lost 3 more cities. 2 of them surrendered to the Han family and the Nangong family. The last city was taken by the Jin Kingdom's army. Gu Jiao scratched the Yen Gate Pass with the tree branch and said, The Jin Kingdom's army has entered. So Tianshan Pass is completely lost. The scout said sadly, yes. What's the good news? Gu Jiao asked. The scout said, the good news is that Xuyang City doesn't have much provisions left. 2 counties are transporting provisions for Xuyang City. They are expected to arrive at the north and east gates of Xuyang City tomorrow night. They were worried about how to attack Xuyang City. After all, the city walls were strong and easy to defend but difficult to attack. Moreover, they were led by cavalry and didn't have the chariots and supplies of infantry. This made breaking the city gate difficult. The news that the scouts had gathered was indeed timely. Chung Fugui said, we can rob them of their provisions. Without provisions, they can only starve in the city. They will definitely come out to take back the provisions. That will be our chance. Gu Jiao nodded. Yes, you are right. However, if the provisions arrive tomorrow night, it meant that their attack plan had to be brought forward. 2 hours later, the scout went to check the whereabouts of the provisions again. He brought back news that they were transporting provisions overnight. This conveyed 2 signals. First, Xuyang City's provisions were in urgent need. They couldn't even last a day. Second, they would arrive at Xuyang City by noon tomorrow at the latest. The attack plan had to be brought forward by half a day. This was a huge challenge for the Black Wind Cavalry, who had been rushing for more than 10 days, especially after crossing mountains for 3 days. How many soldiers do they have? Gu Jiao asked. The scout said, 5,000 each. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully, do they have a lot of provisions? They actually sent 5,000 soldiers. She had 50,000 Black Wind Cavalry, including the supplies and war horses, so the actual fighting force was 20,000. The other side had 10,000 soldiers, so it didn't sound like a big problem. The key point was that robbing the provisions was only the first step. In order to take back the provisions, the Nangong Kingdom's army would come out of the city. That was an army of 80,000. They had to fight continuously without recovering their strength. With 20,000 soldiers against an army of 100,000, it was simply like striking a stone with an egg. The scout asked worriedly, Sir, are we going to fight? Gu Jiao clenched her fists. Her eyes were cold. Fight. Pass down the order. Rest well tonight. There is no need to wake up early tomorrow. In the afternoon, follow me to attack the city. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/105893209. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 829. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Crazy, crazy, crazy. He's really crazy. Zhao Dengfeng went into Wenren Chong's tent and kicked the sleeping Wenren Chong. Wake up. The young commander is crazy. If he's crazy, then he's crazy. Wenren Chong impatiently turned over and continued to sleep. Zhao Dengfeng was stunned. No, what's wrong with you? You've been forging iron for more than 10 years, and you've become stupid. I say the young commander is crazy. He's going to attack the city tomorrow afternoon. And he's going to fight 2 battles, can you believe it? How many soldiers do we have? How many soldiers does Xuyang City have? How tired are we from rushing all the way here? How can we fight them? It's not like we haven't fought them before. Wenren Chong said lightly. Zhao Dengfeng was stunned for a long time before he realized that he was referring to the battle many years ago. Xian Yuanli used 20,000 cavalry to defeat 80,000 Jin soldiers. It was about the same as their current strength. The problem was that the Jin army had rushed thousands of miles to attack. The Jin army had exhausted their strength, but they were the ones waiting for the exhausted soldiers. Whether it was their strength or their morale, they were at their peak. Looking at the current situation, how could they compare to the Black Wind cavalry of the past? Was this new commander better than Xianyuanli? Or was everyone stronger than the morale of the past? If Great Commander Xianyuan was still here, we might have a chance of winning, but our young commander, Tsk, Zhao Dingfeng, was not optimistic. Why did I come here? I'm also crazy. I came here to die. I thought I could fight a few more battles and kill a few more Jin and Liang dogs. But now, I was killed by the Nangong army before I even faced them. Why am I so unlucky? When Ren Cheng was annoyed by his noise, he had more contact with Gu Jiao and knew that this young commander was not as weak as she looked. But to be honest, he didn't dare to have too much hope for tomorrow's battle. Was this what it meant to die before the battle? Gu Jiao's mental fortitude was very strong. Even if tomorrow was a fierce battle with almost no chance of victory, she still fell asleep immediately. He had a dreamless night. In the morning, she called the 6 commanders to the tree and gave them detailed instructions about the battle plan. Mu Qingchen and Advisor, who were also there. Advisor, who was in charge of recording the information. These files had to be reported to the imperial court. Gu Jiao used a branch to draw a simple map on the ground. Then she pointed at a small triangle and said, "This is our current position. There are 2 groups of provisions approaching Xuyang City. They are coming from the North Gate and the East Gate. We are closer to the North City Gate. I went to check the terrain just now. There is a canyon suitable for an ambush along the way. In a while, I will personally lead 1,000 cavalrymen to rob the rations outside the Northern City Gate. After that, I will return here and we will ambush the Nangong family's army. In addition, in order to disperse their forces, someone must also rob the provisions at the East Gate. When the Nangong family's army arrives, don't fight them head-on. Pretend to be defeated and lead them in a roundabout way. The further the better. By the time they realize that they have been lured away, it will be too late to reinforce the canyon. I have a grudge with the Nangong family. I killed Nangong Li. As long as I appear, they will definitely send their main forces to chase after me. Therefore, I need to reserve 18,000 troops at the canyon. Only 2,000 troops can be sent to the East Gate. This is a difficult and dangerous task. Even if they use more than half of their forces to chase after me, there will be at least 10,000 troops left. Once you are caught, you will be completely annihilated. I hope all of you can understand this point." Vanguard Battalion's Left Commander Cheng Fugue cupped his fist and said, "Commander Xiao, this subordinate is willing to lead the troops to the East Gate." Vanguard Battalion's Right Commander Zhao Lei also cupped his fist and said, "This subordinate should go. This subordinate's mother is from Xuyang City. This subordinate has lived in Xuyang City for a period of time. This subordinate is more familiar with the terrain here." Gu Jiao looked at Zhao Lei and said seriously, "All right, I will leave the provisions at the East Gate to you. Go and gather the troops." Zhao Lei got up and left. Gu Jiao then told the rest of the people about the ambush location and the specific arrangements. She also asked Cheng Fugue to gather 2,000 cavalrymen from the Vanguard Battalion to rob the provisions with her. After everyone left, Mu Qingchen said to Gu Jiao, "I will go with you." "No, you and Zhao Lei will rob the provisions at the East Gate," Gu Jiao said. She paused and looked at him calmly. "After you get the provisions, kill Zhao Lei." Mu Qingchen was startled. Gu Jiao said, "He is a spy." In the dream, the Black Wind camp's whereabouts were leaked by Zhao Lei. When they were crossing the mountains in Lu Province, they were surrounded by the Jin and Liang armies and paid a heavy price. This time, it was Zhao Lei who passed the information to the Nangong family. That was why the Nangong family knew in advance that they were coming to Xuyang City. The Nangong family purposely arranged for people to send the provisions as bait. They wanted to lure them to attack when they were exhausted. The reason why they didn't attack them directly was because they were backed by the forest. Once they retreated into the forest, it would be hard to say whose hunting ground it was. Therefore, they had to think of a way to lure the Black Wind cavalry who were good at fighting in the forest. As for why they divided the provisions into 2 groups, It was because the Nangong family thought highly of her. They hoped that they could lure away half of the Black Wind cavalry and kill her more easily. Unfortunately, she didn't plan to divide the troops equally. Once Zhao Lei met the Nangong family, he would immediately tell the Nangong family the truth and work with the Nangong family to eliminate the 2,000 Black Wind cavalry. Mu Qingchen was puzzled. Why don't you kill him now? Gu Jiao said. Take Zhao Lei to rob the provisions. Those soldiers won't fight the Black Wind cavalry head-on. They will pretend to fight for a while, and then run away. This will reduce the casualties of the Black Wind cavalry. Also, you can get some information from Zhao Lei on the way. He thinks that you are a dying man, so he won't be stingy to say a few words. Mu Qingchen didn't know what to say. Who taught you all this? Gu Jiao put one hand behind her back and patted her thigh with the other hand. She said arrogantly, I learned it all by myself. I'm very talented. Mu Qingchen was speechless. In the afternoon, Zhao Lei led 2,000 soldiers to the east gate. Mu Qingchen followed him. Gu Jiao and Cheng Fugui led the other 2,000 soldiers to the north gate. The remaining 16,000 soldiers were led by Li Jin and Tong Zhong to set up an ambush in the canyon that Gu Jiao mentioned. Why are we not involved? Zhao Dengfeng sat outside the tent and looked at the sky in boredom. Wenren Chong found a well-lit place to sit down and repair his armor. Li Shen was sharpening his knife. He and Zhao Dengfeng were now soldiers in the reserve camp. They were responsible for cooking. Zhao Dengfeng was anxious when he saw the two of them resigned to their fate. He spat out the dog's tail grass in his mouth and said, Can you two be more promising? One of you wants your head, and the other wants your life. Men should die. Why are you hiding in the rear camp? The blacksmiths continued to forge and sharpen their knives, but no one paid any attention to him. Meanwhile, Gu Jiao led 2,000 armored cavalry and rushed all the way to the open space of the White Horse Slope to intercept the army provisions that were being sent to Ziyang City. Although the soldiers transporting the provisions wore the armor of the local government, they were actually the army of the Nangong family. Gu Jiao was also surprised by the general who led the soldiers to escort the provisions. It was the third master of the Nangong family, Nangong Li's younger brother, Nangong Zai. There were not many rumors about Nangong Zai in Chengdu. He had been guarding the border with the army. Gu Jiao had seen his portrait in the Imperial Preceptor Hall. He was more handsome and strong than in the portrait. His skin had been tanned into a bronze color by the scorching sun at the border. His bright eyes looked at Gu Jiao with a smile that was not a smile, revealing a bit of undisguised ridicule. You are the new commander of the Black Wind Cavalry? His eyes fell on the birthmark on Gu Jiao's left face. This feature was too obvious. No one would mistake it. Gu Jiao was wearing a red battle suit and black armor. She sat proudly on the back of the Black Wind King's horse. Her young face was somewhat immature, but her eyes revealed a calmness that did not match her age. Are you the one who killed my second brother? Nangong Zai asked with a sneer. Yes, it's me. Gu Jiao admitted frankly. Nangong Zai did not expect her to admit it so readily. He was stunned for a moment before he sneered. My eldest brother actually died in the hands of a brat like you. What a shame to the Nangong family. Originally, I did not want to go through so much trouble, but they all told me to be careful of you and insisted on transporting some provisions to lure you out. Fourth brother and I both moved out. Looks like I was lucky. As he spoke, he looked behind Gu Jiao and said with disdain, Unfortunately, only 2,000 people were lured here. Should we say that we did not plan well? Or should we say that you are extremely daring? You only have 2,000 people, and you dare to rob my 5,000 soldiers. But it doesn't matter. Once we capture you, your Black Wind Cavalry will naturally come to rescue you like moths to a flame. Gu Jiao said calmly, What a coincidence. I was thinking the same thing. If we capture you, we will be able to attract the 80,000-strong army of your Nangong clan. Ha ha. Nangong Zai was about to faint from her laughter. I have lived for more than 30 years and I have never heard such an arrogant tone. Your Black Wind Cavalry only has 20,000 soldiers and you dare to fight my 80,000 soldiers? I think you are scared out of your wits. His gaze landed on Gu Jiao's armor. Do you really think that by wearing Xianyuan Li's armor, you can become the second Xianyuan Li? You're still far from him. As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled out the long sword hanging on the saddle and pointed it at Gu Jiao. Leave this person to me. Kill the rest. The 5,000-strong army surged towards Gu Jiao and the Black Wind Cavalry like a tidal wave. Cheng Fugui pulled out his sword. Brothers, kill them. In an instant, the weapons clashed and the sounds of battle shook the heavens. Gu Jiao looked at Nan Gongzhe, who had risen into the air and slashed at her. Her young face was expressionless, and she was terrifyingly calm. Nan Gongzhe, who was charging towards her, frowned. Gu Jiao pulled out the red-tasseled spear on her back and said word by word. The first battle must see blood. Digression. Are there any more monthly votes? Can I vote for Jiao Jiao? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/105892553. HTML Genius remembers this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 830. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The white cloth on the red-tasseled spear was removed by Gu Jiao and it flew into the wind. The spearhead shone with a cold light under the hot sun. The red-tasseled spear that was identified as a whip was like the blood from the enemy's heart. It was a shocking red. Nan Gongzhe's sword directly chopped down on Gu Jiao's red-tasseled spear, creating a crisp sound of collision. His sword was a treasured sword made of black iron. It was incomparably sharp and indestructible. Not to mention a red-tasseled spear, even if it was a piece of pig iron, he would be able to split it in half. But what shocked Nan Gongzhe was that the ugly red-tasseled spear was actually unharmed. Did it withstand my sword? No, it should be that this brat blocked his killing move. He used a large amount of qinggong and internal energy to complete this move. He saw the scene of Gu Jiao pulling out her spear to block, but he didn't care. This was because he had absolute confidence that he could break Gu Jiao's red-tasseled spear and slash her body. Nan Gongzhe was above Gu Jiao's head and forcefully pressed down on the long sword in his hand. Gu Jiao looked at him calmly. She suddenly leaned back and raised her left leg, kicking towards Nan Gongzhe's head. Nan Gongzhe held his sword in his right hand and was facing off against Gu Jiao. He could only use his left hand to block, but this position was extremely awkward. In addition, his left hand wasn't his dominant hand, so he didn't have enough strength. His entire body was kicked out by Gu Jiao. Nan Gongzhe almost fell under the hooves of the Black Wind Cavalry. Fortunately, he managed to stabilize himself in time. His long sword touched the ground, and he used the momentum to flip and stabilize himself in the chaos. His left arm that blocked Gu Jiao's kick began to feel slightly numb. This brat's strength was terrifying. And what was with the red-tasseled spear in his hand? What? Did it look a little familiar? Where did you get your red-tasseled spear? Nan Gongzhe asked coldly. As he spoke, a soldier from the Nangong family was kicked to the ground by a Black Wind Cavalry. Seeing that his throat was about to be pierced by the Black Wind Cavalry's spear, he swung his sword at the Black Wind Cavalry. Clang! Gu Jiao's red-tasseled spear blocked his sword. The cavalryman was slightly startled, but his movements were not affected. It was as if they had cooperated thousands of times before. Under Gu Jiao's protection, he stabbed the Nangong rebel to death. Don't say that we are all from the great Yin kingdom. Rebels are rebels. It is the mission of the Black Wind Cavalry to purge the rebels. Nan Gongzhe did not care about his soldiers as much as Gu Jiao did for the Black Wind Cavalry. If they died, so be it. They still had more soldiers. However, this made him even more curious about Gu Jiao. How could he be so gifted at such a young age? Gu Jiao did not intend to talk nonsense with Nan Gongzhe. Nan Gongzhe recognized that the armor she was wearing was Xian Yuanli's armor, but he did not recognize that her red-tasseled spear was Xian Yuanli's weapon. She was not good at martial arts and was blind. She had been a spy in the Xian Yuan army for so many years. Gu Jiao stepped on the stirrups and jumped onto the horse's back. She turned in the air and slammed her spear down heavily at Nan Gongzhe. Nan Gongzhe's pupils shrank. The 7 styles of Xian Yuan. This was the Xian Yuan family's spear technique. The youth was holding Xian Yuan Li's red-tasseled spear. How could it be? Who are you? He swung his sword to block the red-tasseled spear above his head. He held the sword hilt with one hand, and the blade with the other. He used all his internal energy to block the youth's attack. Gu Jiao immediately followed up with a second strike at lightning speed. With a crisp crack, Nan Gongzhe's black iron sword was broken by the youth's red-tasseled spear. Nan Gongzhe's eyes widened in disbelief. Gu Jiao did not give Nan Gongzhe any time to catch his breath. She quickly stabbed her spear again. Behind her, Cheng Fugui was forced down from his horse by a rebel from the Nangong family in order to save his companions. The rebel cut his left shoulder with a sword. Damn you! He turned his head and stabbed the rebel with his spear. As soon as the rebels fell, even more rebels surged forward. Kill their horses! Someone in the rebel army shouted, and everyone changed their direction of attack. They didn't want to fight the cavalry head-on, but instead, they slashed at the Black Wind cavalry that they were riding. The Xianyuan Steel Cavalry was the bravest war horse in the 6 nations. They were trained to protect their masters and did not care about their own safety. As long as the cavalry did not stop, they would continue to fight. They would not retreat because of swords and sabers, and would not cower because of injuries. Cheng Fugui watched as the Black Wind cavalry fell one after another. His eyes were bloodshot. Damn it! How dare you kill our mounts? Give me your life. The battle between 2 armies was not a duel between individuals. Everyone was killing each other, and people could be injured or killed at any time. The Black Wind cavalry was at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers. Any small victory that was bought with a huge price or sacrifice would be considered a failure. Gu Jiao had to end the battle as soon as possible. Nan Gongzhe, who had lost his weapon, got on his horse and took a spear from a Black Wind cavalry. Gu Jiao deftly flicked his spear away. The Black Wind King raised his front hooves and charged towards Nan Gongzhe's horse with a murderous aura. Nan Gongzhe's warhorse was so frightened that it fled. Its entire body stood upright. Nan Gongzhe cursed angrily and fell from the horse's back. He rolled a few times and coincidentally saw a long sword in front of him. His eyes lit up and he hurriedly reached out to pick it up. Gu Jiao's spear pierced over and nailed his palm to the dusty ground. Gu Jiao said, "I said that the first battle must see blood. The blood of the traitors shall be used to pay tribute to the dead souls of the Xianyuan family." Gu Jiao held the red-tasseled spear and pressed it down. Ah! Nan Gongzhe let out a shrill cry. After tasting the blood of the traitors, the red-tasseled spear seemed to shine even brighter. Endless fighting spirit reverberated throughout the battlefield. The morale of the Black Wind cavalry was greatly boosted. Gu Jiao pulled out the red-tasseled spear and kicked Nan Gongzhe unconscious. On the battlefield, it was not individual strength that mattered, but teamwork. Although Nan Gongzhe's martial arts were not as good as an Hun's, he was not weak in a real battle. If Nan Gongzhe had not targeted Gu Jiao so much today, and had wholeheartedly led the rebel army to arrange the troops, he would not have lost so thoroughly. Of course, Gu Jiao's age made it easy for people to underestimate her. Who would have thought that a teenager could defeat the fierce general of the Nangong family? After Nan Gongzhe was captured alive by Gu Jiao, the rebel army's morale was in chaos. The Black Wind cavalry took advantage of the victory and killed almost all of the rebel army. Gu Jiao asked Cheng Fugui to keep a few of them alive. "Go and tell the head of the Nangong family that I, Xiao Lulang, am here. I'm the one who killed his second son, Nangongli. Now I've captured his third son, Nan Gongzhe. If he wants to redeem his son, use Ziyang City as an exchange. Otherwise, I'll chop off his son's head and hang it on the Black Wind camp's flagpole." When they thought of that inspiring scene, all of the Black Wind cavalry raised their weapons. Kill! Kill! Kill. Their shouts shook the heavens and the clouds. The few remaining rebel soldiers were so frightened by this monstrous aura that they trembled all over. Their faces filled with fear. Gu Jiao waved her spear and said seriously, "Also, if the Nangong family does not surrender, I'll attack Tuyang City and kill every single one of them." Report. Report. In the governor's mansion, the head of the Nangong family was sitting in the parlor and playing with his grandson. When he heard the soldier's anxious voice, he asked the servant to carry his 3-year-old grandson away and summon the soldier. When the head of the Nangong family asked with a sullen face, he was a little unhappy that his family's happiness with his grandson was interrupted. The soldier knelt on one knee and said anxiously, "Governor, the third master has been captured." The head of the Nangong family's eyes turned cold. He pressed his palm on the armrest and stood up. "What did you say? Who has been captured? Who has captured him?" The soldier cupped his hands and said, "The third master has been captured by Xiao Lulang from the Black Wind camp. Xiao Lulang said that if you want to redeem the third master, use Tuyang City as an exchange. He also said. The head of the Nangong family gripped the armrest tightly and said through gritted teeth, "What else did he say?" The soldier said in fear, "He also said that if the governor doesn't surrender, he will attack the city and kill all the people of the Nangong family." The head of the Nangong family slapped the chair. "Bastard!" "Father!" The eldest son, Nangong Chung, quickly walked into the parlor. "I just came from the city tower. I heard that the third brother has been captured." The head of the Nangong family was so angry that his whole body trembled. "Xiao Lulang, it's that Xiao Lulang again." Nangong Chung was shocked. "It's him?" The head of the Nangong family suppressed his anger and closed his eyes. "I told him to bring more soldiers, but he didn't listen." Nangong Chung didn't reply. Actually, it was impossible to bring more soldiers. The mission of the third brother and the fourth brother was to lure the Black Wind camp out of the mountain. If the third brother and the fourth brother had brought more soldiers, the cavalry of the Black Wind camp wouldn't have come out of the mountain to rob the provisions. Moreover, their target was Xiao Lulang. Whether it was the third brother or the fourth brother, they would capture him alive if they could. If they couldn't, they would kill him. Nangong Chung frowned. "I didn't expect this Xiao Lulang to be so powerful. The first day he appeared, the third brother fell into his hands. I wonder how the fourth brother is doing?" The head of the Nangong family said, "Your fourth brother didn't encounter Xiao Lulang, so he should be fine for now. You should think about how to save your third brother." "Grandfather." A woman in red armor walked in with a solemn expression. She cupped her hands and bowed to the head of the Nangong family and Nangong Chung. "Grandfather, uncle, please allow me to bring the soldiers to save my father." If Gu Jiao was here, she would definitely recognize her. She was Nangong Jing, the daughter of the third branch of the Nangong family, who wanted to drag fifth master Han down at the cost of her own reputation during the selection of the Black Wind camp's commander. As the daughter of a general, Nangong Jing was also quite skilled in martial arts. "Grandfather, I'll go too. I want to take revenge for my father." Nangong Li's youngest son, Nangong Lin, also rushed in with a murderous aura. Nangong Chung said in a deep voice, "Stop fooling around. Go back to your rooms." Even your father wasn't a match for Xiao Lulang. Do you really think you can take advantage of him? Nangong Chung and the head of the Nangong family were a little angry at the mention of this. They already knew that this Xiao Lulang was a fake. He wasn't 19 years old. From his appearance, he was only 16 or 17 years old. However, he was already so capable. Before Xiao Lulang appeared, the Nangong family had always been proud of their juniors. They thought that they were young and capable, and that their achievements in the future would definitely be greater than their elders. However, after Xiao Lulang appeared, their children suddenly weren't as good. Was the difference between people that big? "Leave," the head of the Nangong family said in a deep voice. Now that they were in troubled times, it was inevitable that the head of the Nangong family's temper was more irritable than before. Nangong Lin and Nangong Jing were stunned by the scolding. They looked at each other and left unwillingly. Nangong Chung consoled him. "Father, please calm down first. I'll think of a way to save third brother." The head of the Nangong family said bitterly. This person is ruthless. Your third brother will definitely suffer a lot in his hands. Nangong Chung thought for a while and said, Father, I think there's still room for negotiation. He didn't kill third brother and wants to negotiate with us. It's obvious that he doesn't have enough troops to fight against our army in the city. Why don't we beat him at his own game and call Xiao Lulang to Ziyang City in the name of negotiation and wait for an opportunity to kill him? The head of the Nangong family said coldly, How do you know that you're not inviting a wolf into the house? Xiao Lulang is so cunning. Once he enters the city and incites the people in the name of the Xianyuan army, the consequences will be unimaginable. We'll kill him outside the city. Go and call Changwei here. Nangong Qing asked, Father, you want General Changwei to fight against Xiao Lulang? The head of the Nangong family said coldly, Changwei is the most capable subordinate of the Nangong family. He's skilled in martial arts and is brave and good at fighting. Over the years, there have been many wars at the border, but he hasn't lost even once. Ask him to bring all the troops in the city. He must kill all the Black Wind cavalry. Although the Black Wind cavalry only had 20,000 soldiers, it was the most powerful army in the Great Yin dynasty. It was also the first army that the Xianyuan family established. The Xianyuan family relied on the Black Wind cavalry to dominate the 6 states. Later on, they slowly built their own archery unit, infantry unit, and chariot unit. In order to extinguish the fighting spirit of the 3 armies, they must first eliminate the Black Wind cavalry. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10587047. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 831. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. In Feng County, on the official road that was used to transport the provisions, there had just been a battle. Thick blood mist filled the entire open space. Chung Fugui's arm was hanging with gauze, directing the soldiers who were not injured to count the provisions. Probably because the city was really short of provisions, so the provisions this time were all real. This was a great harvest. This was an unprecedented war, and it would not end easily. It was always right to stock up more provisions. It was not good to stay here for a long time. Gu Jiao took 4 medical officers to treat the injuries of the injured soldiers. Bear with it for a while, Gu Jiao said to a soldier whose arm was dislocated. The soldier nodded. Gu Jiao put his arm back in place. Then she took gauze from the small medicine box and wrapped it around his neck. Just like Chung Fugui, his arm was hung around his neck. After that, Gu Jiao treated the next soldier. She pulled out the sword, disinfected, stopped bleeding, stitched up, and put gauze on the wound. After counting the provisions, the soldiers rested on the spot to recover their strength. But Gu Jiao could not rest. There were no hospital beds here. All the soldiers were lying on the ground. She could only kneel and treat everyone. The cold hard armor rubbed her knees. She knelt in front of a wounded soldier covered in blood. This wounded soldier was very young. He had just joined the army this year. His family was poor. In order to treat his grandfather's illness, he joined the army. He had the talent to be a soldier. Chung Fugui took him back to the Black Wind camp. My leg. He looked at his injured and swollen leg. His eyes suddenly had tears of fear. This was the first time he went to the battlefield. It was also the first time he faced serious injury and death. It won't be crippled. It will be cured, Gu Jiao said to him. Really? He asked with a choked voice. Gu Jiao said, Yes, really. But you have to be obedient. Don't make noise. Don't cry. He stopped his tears in a second, fearing that he wouldn't be able to recover if he cried too much. Gu Jiao took out the anesthetic and applied local anesthesia on him. Then, she used a scalpel to cut open his skin, and used a pair of tweezers to pick out the broken sword fragments bit by bit. The wounded soldier did not dare to look at Gu Jiao's movements. He turned his head away and closed his eyes tightly. The rest of the cavalry couldn't help but look over. To be honest, the new commander-in-chief's performance today was somewhat beyond their expectations. Nangongze was famous for being a fierce general at the border. He had personally led the troops to escort the rations and waited for the Black Wind cavalry to jump in. At that moment, they were actually very worried that this little commander would drag them down. At that time they thought, "Little commander, can you go play for a while? Wait until we've robbed all the provisions, then you can come back and claim the credit, okay?" They had the mood of an adult coaxing a child, hoping that the little commander would not come out and cause trouble. Who knew that the little commander would be so fierce, nailing Nangongze's palm to the ground with a spear? At that moment, they all had goosebumps all over their bodies. This feeling was like, you thought you had a cat, but in the blink of an eye, it turned out to be a little cheetah, and it even bit the big-tailed wolf that you were afraid of to death. A cavalry soldier whispered to the squad leader beside him, "I almost got hit by the sword just now, but the little commander blocked it for me." If it wasn't for the little commander's spear, he was afraid that his injuries would be worse than Gooden's. Gooden was the name of the wounded soldier. The cavalry soldier secretly sized up Gu Jiao as he continued to whisper, "Squad leader, don't you think the little commander is quite powerful?" The squad leader was about to say something when Gu Jiao seemed to have sensed something and looked over. Everyone quickly averted their gazes. Some looked up at the sky, while others scratched their feet. When Gu Jiao went to treat the wounds of the wounded soldiers, everyone's eyes fell on her again. Gu Jiao had already gone to treat the next wounded soldier. This wounded soldier had fainted. After being saved by Gu Jiao, he saw Gu Jiao holding a syringe in her hand and screamed in fright. Gu Jiao pricked his buttocks with the needle. Disobedient. There was a deep and sealed wound on his body. Gu Jiao gave him a tetanus shot. Everyone stared at Gu Jiao without blinking. Did the little commander snort just now? When the little commander was fierce? Why did she look a little cute? At this moment, Gu Jiao ran out of blood-staunching powder. She took a new bottle from the small medicine box, but when she tore it open, her nose itched and she sneezed. Achoo! Her small body trembled, and the white powder splashed on her face. She stared dumbfoundedly at the blood-staunching powder that was half gone. She was in so much pain that her expression cracked. Damn! Someone couldn't help but cry out. Everyone clutched their hearts. They couldn't take it anymore. The little commander was a little too cute. The Nangong family's rebel army could attack at any time, so they could only treat them urgently. They had to wait until they reached a safe place to put them on drips. After Gu Jiao and the medical officers finished treating all the wounds, the 2,000 soldiers set off back to the canyon. The cavalry was very curious about what had happened just now. A few of them were brave enough to call out to a medical officer. The leader of the cavalry asked, "The little commander knows medicine? Did you guys teach her?" The medical officer smiled and said, "You're wrong. Our medical skills were taught by Lord Shao." What? The cavalry was dumbfounded. The medical officer marched with the troops. He had seen how Gu Jiao was treated in the Black Wind camp during this period. She was so young and had such a heavy responsibility, but she was still ostracized by a group of men. But the cavalry couldn't be blamed. The previous commanders of the Han family had bitterly disappointed them. However, this newly appointed commander was different from the Han family. The medical officer explained, "We're lacking in the treatment of external injuries. Every day after you rest, Lord Shao will call us to his tent and teach us how to treat external injuries, including how to use the medicine and tools he gave us." There's actually such a thing. A cavalry muttered. "I've seen it once or twice when I was patrolling. I thought the little commander was afraid of death and always asked the medical officer to check his pulse." The medical officer smiled and said, Lord Zhao's medical skills are brilliant. We can't compare to him. They trained in the Black Wind camp all day, so they didn't know that Gu Jiao had treated the crown princess. Another cavalry said in surprise. So our little commander not only knows how to fight, but also knows how to treat people. He used us. He didn't even realize that he had used a nickname that belonged to his own people. The others didn't seem to find anything wrong with this nickname. Why aren't we leaving? Gu Jiao looked back at the people who were still whispering behind. Everyone quickly straightened their expressions and urged their horses to follow. Gu Jiao had chosen a place to set up camp before she left. It was at the foot of a mountain 3 miles away from the canyon, backed by a small forest. The reserve camp had already moved here. The tents were set up and dinner was ready. Gu Jiao let the injured soldiers return to their tents to recuperate. The injured Black Wind cavalry were also taken away for treatment. As for the food they robbed, it was handed over to Zhang Shiyong and Zhou Run, the 2 commanders of the reserve camp. Li Jin and Tong Zhong of the assault camp came to Gu Jiao's tent and reported the situation of the ambush in the canyon. Very good. Gu Jiao nodded. Have the soldiers eaten dinner? Yes, Li Jin said. Gu Jiao said, once it gets dark, the Nangong family's rebel army will take action. Everyone must be prepared for battle. Yes. The 2 men cupped their fists in response. My lord, who is this person? Advisor who ran over anxiously. He looked at Nangong Zhe who was tied up and thrown on the ground. Rebel army? Nangong Zhe. Gu Jiao said. Advisor who was shocked. Nangong. Nangong Zhe? The 3rd master of the Nangong family. My lord, you captured him? We kept him as bait. Gu Jiao clapped her hands and no longer cared about Nangong Zhe on the ground. Instead, she looked at Li Jin and Tong Zhong. Based on your understanding of the Nangong family, who will they send to lead the troops tonight? Li Jin thought for a moment and said, Chang Wei. Tong Zhong said, either Chang Wei or Nangong Sitsi. Gu Jiao said, Nangong Sitsi has gone to deliver another batch of food. Mu Qingchen is leading them in a roundabout way. They won't be able to come tonight. She was talking about Mu Qingchen, not Zhao Lei. Logically speaking, Zhao Lei was the commander of the Black Wind cavalry. Mu Qingchen did not have an official position. Zhao Lei should be the one leading them in a roundabout way. However, she was close to Mu Qingchen. The 2 of them thought that she was just talking about Mu Qingchen out of habit, and did not take it to heart. That leaves only Chang Wei. Tong Zhong's expression suddenly turned serious. If it's Chang Wei, we'll be in trouble. He's harder to deal with than Nangong Sitsi. He's a real fierce general. Gu Jiao said casually. We'll know if he's fierce or not after the battle. Night fell. Chang Wei was dressed in armor. He led an army of 80,000 soldiers out of Ziyang City and headed toward Feng County in the east. This army was well equipped. There were archers, cavalry, infantry, and heavy chariots. It was obvious that they were going to fight the Black Wind cavalry to the death. Chang Wei was born in a poor family. He became a fierce general on the border with his strength. He was very experienced in battle. He had his own way of dealing with the invincible Black Wind cavalry. When the army was 3 miles away from the valley, Chang Wei called for them to stop. General? His deputy general looked at him in confusion. Chang Wei looked at the valley in the night. It was like the mouth of a giant beast. He said calmly, they will definitely set up an ambush in the valley. The deputy general looked at the valley that reached into the clouds. He said, it's indeed a good place to set up an ambush. General, what do you plan to do? Chang Wei said, take a group of people and feign an attack. Force them to attack. When they've used up all their ambushes, retreat. I have a plan. Digression, Jiao. For every cause, there must be an effect. Your brilliant plan is me. JPG. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/1058690008. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 832. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. At dusk, the entire Black Wind camp entered a state of preparation. They packed up and set off. Nangongze was tied to a wooden stake in the camp. He woke up an hour ago. He thought he would be tortured, but he wasn't. The men left him alone after they tied him up. His injured palm was wrapped in gauze. The wound must have been treated because there wasn't a lot of blood seeping out. He frowned deeply as he watched the cavalrymen come and go and fight in front of him. He was tied very close to the Black Wind camp's commander's tent. With his hearing, he could hear the conversation inside. He knew there would be a fierce battle tonight, and knew what the Black Wind camp had prepared. If he could tell Nangongjun the Black Wind camp's battle plan, he would be able to take down the Black Wind camp effortlessly. Unfortunately, that kid tied him up with iron chains. He couldn't break free at all. He tried to lure the cavalry over, and coax them to take him to see the Black Wind camp's commander. That way he could find a chance to escape. But he shouted so many times that the horsemen who came and went in front of him seemed to be deaf. Damn it! Nangongze gritted his teeth. He had to find a way to leave this place. He couldn't let the Black Wind camp use him to threaten Nangongjun. Just as he was racking his brains for a way to escape, he saw Gu Jiao come out of her tent with a helmet. He hurriedly said, "Xiao Lulang, what trick are you playing this time? Do you think you can make my father surrender to you by capturing me? I'm warning you, you better give up. My father will never bow down to you for me." Gu Jiao said to advisor who followed her out, "Remember to put more water and cook it slowly." Advisor who nodded, "Yes, I'll remember." Zhang Shiyong. Gu Jiao called the reserve camp's left commander, who came back with a newly hunted animal. "There's no time to dry a few baskets of herbs. Find a few people to roast them." "Yes," Zhang Shiyong replied. Gu Jiao called a few more people over, and gave them instructions one by one. She only walked over unhurriedly when Nangongze's face was as black as charcoal. Hugging her helmet, she looked down at Nangongze, who was in a sorry state, and asked, "What's the matter?" Nangongze hated the feeling of looking up at him, but if he did not look at him, it would seem that he was afraid of him. Nangongze looked up and said coldly, "You won't succeed. My father won't exchange the entire Ziyang city for me." Gu Jiao. Oh. Gu Jiao's calm reaction made Nangongze even angrier. He was obviously a brat who was still wet behind the ears, but no matter what he did, he was so calm. He gritted his teeth and threatened, "Also, you won't succeed. You only have 20,000 cavalrymen, while my Nangong family has 80,000 soldiers. Your little tricks are nothing in the face of an 80,000-strong army. Xiao Lulang, it's not too late for you to regret. Send me back obediently. Kowtow to my father 3 times and pledge allegiance to the Nangong family. Maybe we can spare your life." "Are you done?" Gu Jiao tilted her head and looked at him fearlessly. "You're not very eloquent." After saying that, she walked away with a little disdain. The army was ready to set off, and the medical officers followed with medicinal herbs and fragrances. People would constantly get injured during a war, so the presence of medical officers was very necessary. The huge camp was emptied in an instant, leaving only the soldiers of the reserve camp and the injured soldiers who were transported back from the front line in the afternoon. Nangongze stopped looking around and frowned in confusion. Xiao Lulang had really left. He didn't bring her along. This was too strange. If he was Xiao Lulang, what would he do when the two armies were facing each other? He would use him, the legitimate son of the Nangong family, as a shield so that the Nangong army would not dare to act recklessly. Could it be, he's thinking that if he loses, he'll use me as a last resort? No, I can't let Xiao Lulang succeed. I must escape. The sky became gloomier and gloomier until it was completely dark. On the mountain peaks on the east and west sides of the canyon, the Black Wind Camp's cavalry, who were almost one with the night, lay in ambush. Li Jin was lying on the edge of a rock on the east peak, closely watching the movements below the canyon. On the west peak opposite him, Tong Zhong was also constantly vigilant. Behind the two of them were the cavalry in their respective positions. Everyone was ready to deal with the Nangong army that could appear at any time. Li Jin pressed his ear to the ground. Suddenly, he felt a vibration on the slope of the mountain. Someone was coming. To be exact, a large group of people was coming. Li Jin blew a cuckoo's call, and Tong Zhong responded with 2 cuckoo's calls. Both sides reached a tacit agreement and raised their right hands together. The sound of horse hooves approached from afar, mixed with the sound of armor rubbing against each other. In the silent mountain range, it sounded like a battle. The moon was good tonight. The armor reflected the cold light, and the sound of horse hooves echoed in the valley. They were close to the canyon. 10 zhang, 7 zhang, 5 zhang. Li Jin suddenly pressed down with his hand. Drop! The 20 cavalry behind him used the wooden sticks in their hands to pry open the huge rocks one by one. The rocks rolled down from the craggy mountain, creating a thunderous sound. The Nangong army that had charged into the canyon was smashed by the rocks, and their formation was instantly disrupted. Wails of pain intertwined. Tong Zhong was not willing to be outdone. He suddenly lit the trench behind him. Release the arrows. The Black Wind Camp had the highest requirements for their soldiers, and their training was also the most comprehensive. Not only were they good at fighting on horseback, they were also good at fighting infantry, archery, and formations. Their arrowheads were dipped in kerosene, and after they were lit in the trench, the scorching flames covered the sky as they shot towards the rebel army in the canyon. The rebel army did not have any strength to fight back, and fell down in a clatter. The vice-general was stunned. Even though he knew that they were here to die, he did not expect them to die so quickly. Xiao! An arrow flew over, and the vice-general quickly leaned back to dodge it. The arrow flew past his nose. The tip of his nose was still hot from the kerosene, and he was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. But he could not retreat. He gripped the reins tightly and pulled out the sword at his waist. Charge! Kill them all! The space on the mountain was limited, so it was impossible for everyone to hide up there. The Black Wind Camp's main force must be hiding in front of the canyon. As long as they charged over, they would be able to fight them. Large rocks and logs kept rolling down from the peak of the canyon, and the kerosene arrows burned the entire canyon. When the Nangong army charged through the canyon, they had already lost more than half of their forces. The vice-general's heart was bleeding. Even if they wanted to die, they did not want to die so many. Fortunately, they had already charged through the canyon. Now, as long as they fought with the enemy, they would stop the ambush on the mountain to avoid hurting their own people. On the other side of the canyon, Cheng Fugui saw that the Nangong army had already charged through the canyon. He tore off the bandage on his arm, pulled the reins and pulled out his sword. Brothers, kill! The Black Wind Camp's cavalry were like a surging tide as they charged towards the Nangong army with killing intent. Horses were timid by nature, and were easily frightened. To train a horse into a proper warhorse was an extremely difficult task. To train a horse into a Black Wind rider, other than the Xianyuan family, there was no other family that could do it. The Nangong family had also trained many good horses at the border. However, first of all, they were not as good as the Black Wind cavalry, and second of all, there was a big gap in terms of training tactics. The Black Wind cavalry were called the death soldiers of the horse for a reason. The vice-general was already unable to remain calm. After exchanging blows with the enemy, he quickly gave the order to retreat. Cheng Fugui excitedly shouted, "Brothers! Charge! Kill them all! Don't let the rebels escape!" In terms of the speed of a war horse, who could outrun the Black Wind cavalry? Fortunately, General Chang Wei was already prepared. Fire! The vice-general shouted, and the rebels under his command all took out something and threw it on the ground. Then the vice-general pulled out a kerosene arrow from the corpse of a rebel and threw it at those things. A series of shocking explosions could be heard. The black gunpowder blew up the valley into a land of thick smoke. Due to the limitations of the formula and manufacturing method, the explosive power of the black gunpowder was not very strong. It was mainly used in conjunction with sleeping gas and knockout drugs. Chung Fugui quickly pulled on the reins. Stop! Stop! Be careful! There are knockout drugs. This incident bought precious time for the vice general and the others. They managed to rush back to where the Nangong army was. The Black Wind cavalry chased after them relentlessly. Everyone could clearly hear Chung Fugui's cursing. Chang Wei saw that there were less than 500 people left and frowned. He never underestimated the enemy, but the strength of the Black Wind cavalry was still beyond his imagination. However, this was the end. After tonight, there would be no more Black Wind cavalry. After the last rebel stepped into the safe zone, Chang Wei ordered the soldiers on both sides of the road. Rise! The gloved soldiers on both sides each pulled a few transparent threads in their hands. With a whoosh, they ran to the opposite side and tied the transparent threads to the already nailed iron pillars on both sides. The pillars were also wrapped in the same cloth as the silver thread gloves. If Gu Jiao was here, it would not be difficult for her to recognize that this was the snowfield silk that appeared in the Yin Kingdom's palace. It was extremely sharp and could cut through anything. However, it couldn't see anything. When the Black Wind cavalry charged over, only pieces of meat would be left. On the other hand, they would pretend to be strong and let the elites swing their swords to make the Black Wind cavalry think that they were cut by the sword energy. This was the highest level of the art of confusing the enemy. The Black Wind cavalry who did not know the truth would keep charging forward, trying their best to kill the elites. However, even when the last cavalry fell, no one would understand that there were no elites. What killed was the invisible snow domain heavenly silkworm silk. Charge! Brothers! Charge! Kill these traitors! Chung Fugui's voice reverberated throughout the entire road. The Black Wind cavalry followed him without hesitation. The deputy general rode on his horse and stood beside his general. Looking at the cavalry of the Black Wind battalion, he coldly curled his lips and said, "General, you really are a genius. They have fallen into our trap." Chung Fugui urged his horse forward. His eyes shone with the excitement of killing the enemy. "I see it. The Nangong clan's rebel army is right in front. Brothers, charge!" Chang Wei did not even bat an eyelid. Only pieces of meat could break through the snowfield silk. He did not need to instruct the archers to prepare, nor did he need to instruct the cavalry and infantry to listen to his orders. He only needed to make a hand gesture and let the elites start to pretend. That's right, the elites must stand high enough and be eye-catching enough for all the Black Wind cavalry to see. "Go up to the top of the pillar," he said. More than 10 elites used their qinggong and leaped onto the wooden pillar. Chung Fugui led his subordinates closer. They were turning a corner. Their figures were hidden by the slope in front of them. When they rushed out of the slope and onto the road, the hunt began. 3, 2, 1. The lieutenant counted silently in his heart. 3, 2, 1. He counted silently again. He looked at the pitch-black slope with a dumbfounded expression. "Can't you turn a corner and come out? Why are you still nowhere to be seen? Wait a minute." The sound of horse hooves was also gone. "General." The lieutenant looked at Chang Wei strangely. He could not understand what was going on. Soon Takeshi frowned. Just a moment ago, they were so noisy that their heads were about to split open. How did they suddenly disappear without a trace in the blink of an eye? Did something happen behind the slope when they turned the corner? But it shouldn't be to the extent of suddenly. No. Something is wrong. Chang Wei turned around abruptly and looked at the Nangong clan's army behind him. Woo! A bugle horn suddenly sounded from behind the Nangong clan's army. It was like the opening of a huge battle in the dark night. Following that, someone beat the war drum. Dong! 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 Every sound was like a roar from hell. The bugle horn sounded, the war drum beat, and the sound of horse hooves approached in unison. Even the sound of armor rubbing against each other was completely in sync. In the dark night, the flying eagle flag of the Xianyuan family fluttered in the wind. The wind that came from the valley was like a dragon's roar, causing one's heart to tremble. The 20,000 Xian Yuan steel cavalry wore black armor and helmets. Even their horses were covered in black armor. Chang Wei's gaze was fixed on the young man, leading the Xian Yuan steel cavalry. With just one look, Chang Wei recognized the young man from the Xian Yuan family. It was not based on his appearance, nor his identity. It was based on the young man's murderous aura and wolf-like nature. Chang Wei instantly felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. The young man pulled down the iron mask on his helmet, revealing only a pair of calm eyes. Attack! All the Xian Yuan steel cavalry raised their hands and pulled down the cold masks on their helmets in unison. The hunt has begun. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1058470089. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Pen Fun Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 833. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are available here. The shock and impact of this scene was extremely great. The dark mass of Black Wind cavalry was like boiling molten iron as they charged towards the 80,000 rebels of the Nangong family. There was a formation when an army fought. Usually, the archers and chariots would be at the front. When charging, the cavalry would be at the front while the infantry would be at the back. Soon Takeshi's main battlefield was near the canyon, so the Nangong cavalry and chariots were naturally arranged there. According to the original plan, as long as the Black Wind cavalry encountered the snowfield silk, they would not have to do anything. The problem was he was not sure if the lieutenant could successfully lure the Black Wind cavalry over. If the lieutenant and the cavalry were killed in the canyon, the Black Wind cavalry would be waiting for them to attack the canyon. Then the snowfield silk would not be of any use. Just in case, he still made this the main battlefield. This arrangement opened the door for the Black Wind cavalry and welcomed them to harvest their heads. Cavalry and infantry were not on the same level. Moreover, they were facing the most powerful Black Wind cavalry of the 6 nations. Soon Takeshi did not need to look to know how many soldiers he would lose. Soon Takeshi looked coldly at the lieutenant beside him. Didn't you see that they did not have many soldiers when you fought with them? The lieutenant was speechless. He was overwhelmed by the Black Wind cavalry's aura in the canyon, and was scared out of his wits. He only wanted to leave as soon as possible, fearing that he would die in the hands of the Black Wind cavalry. He did not have the time to count how many soldiers they had. He waved his arm and pointed at the quiet hill. It's their commander. He's shouting too loudly. My head is buzzing. This was one of the reasons. Chung Fugue used his own strength to shout out the aura of thousands of soldiers and horses. It made people feel that he had all the Black Wind cavalry behind him. Soon Takeshi gritted his teeth. You haven't even seen the Black Wind cavalry's commander. How can you be sure that all the Black Wind cavalry are there? He was stunned by Chung Fugue's shouting. At this point, soon Takeshi could not tell that he had fallen into a trap. The ambush in the canyon was just a diversion. In fact, the main force of the Black Wind cavalry had already circled to the back of the Nangong army. The commander shouted and scolded, creating such a huge commotion to distract them so that they wouldn't notice the main force of the Black Wind cavalry approaching from the other side. How did they come up with the idea of going around to the rear? Were they not afraid that the Black Wind cavalry would be swallowed whole by the Nangong family's army? Unless the Black Wind cavalry had already expected that they would not be able to pass through. Soon Takashi looked at the faintly discernible snowfield heavenly silkworm silk in front of him. Then, he looked at the Black Wind Battalion cavalryman who suddenly hid behind the hill, and stopped advancing. A bold guess suddenly formed in his mind. That young man had guessed that he would use this move. But how was that possible? Even the head of the Nangong family did not know that he had the snow domain heavenly silkworm silk. Who was this young man, and why did he know him so well? There was no time to think about this. Screams of agony could be heard from the back. The Black Wind cavalry was killing people, as if they were taking candy out of a bag. If this continued, the army would be defeated. Find someone to dismantle the snow domain heavenly silkworm silk, he ordered his deputy general. This thing was not that easy to dismantle. It was impervious to fire, water, and weapons. In order to prevent it from slipping off, it was tied in a dead knot. Those wooden pillars were also specially made. This was what it meant to have a circle around the place. Soon Takashi was having a headache. He could only order his deputy general to dismantle it. He wanted to go around the sides and kill the Black Wind cavalry who were hiding behind the hill, but he had chosen the best place to do so. There were lakes on both sides. How could he go around them? Should he dive? Soon Takashi endured the waves of dizziness, and coldly pulled out his long sword. All cavalrymen, follow me to battle. Chariots, get ready. Archers, follow me. Chariots with archers were a good way to deal with cavalrymen. However, the chariots were too slow. He had to fight with the Black Wind cavalry first. Soon Takashi took the lead, and led the Nangong family's cavalrymen to pass through the infantry camp. The Nangong family's army was not weak. They had always followed the Xianyuan family's training method. However, this advantage was useless against the real Xianyuan family's army. The strength of the Xianyuan family's army was engraved in their bones. When the flying eagle flag fluttered in the wind, the heat wave that rolled through their chests was enough to burn their organs. Soon Takashi's participation allowed the Nangong family to regain some of their backbone. The defeated army gradually recovered under his command. However, this was still not enough to stop the Black Wind cavalry from killing. The invincible Black Wind cavalry was like a giant beast from the abyss. They were also like Asuras from hell. No rebel army could escape from their butcher's knife. Soon Takashi watched as his soldiers fell one by one. His eyes were bloodshot. On the other side, the deputy general was ordering a few soldiers to dismantle the snow domain heavenly silkworm silk. Weapons would not work. With one slash, the sword would break into two. Burning it with fire would not work either. He tried to cut the wooden pillar. However, the wooden pillar was harder than iron. It did not budge even after he cut it with his sword. Finally, the deputy general had an idea. Dig out the pillar for me. Swoosh. An arrow flew over and struck one of the Nangong soldiers, causing him to fall to the ground. The deputy general's eyes trembled. He quickly looked over and saw Qing Fugui, Li Jin, and Tong Zhong leading a large group of cavalry to shoot arrows at them. Whenever one came close to the pillar, they would shoot one. If two came close, they would shoot both. The deputy general raised a shield to block himself. He gritted his teeth and said, "Are you bullying us because we don't have archers?" F***ck. They really didn't. They were taken away by General Tsun Takashi. The situation on the battlefield was constantly changing. A moment of carelessness could lead to irreversible consequences. This was not to say that Tsun Takashi's ability to see the entire situation was not enough. It was just that Gu Jiao's appearance was the biggest variable in this battle. Tsun Takashi had seen countless people, but he had never fought with such an enemy. The other party seemed to be very familiar with his style, but he knew nothing about him. He originally thought that the other party was just a martial arts prodigy. Who would have thought that the other party was a talented commander? Soon Takashi's eyes were bloodshot as he looked at the young man who had killed countless Nangong soldiers. The young man was too ferocious. No one dared to get close to him. However, no one could escape from his hunt. Soon Takashi led the cavalry to surround Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao saw so many people charging at her, but there was no fear in her eyes. She grabbed the reins with one hand and the red-tasseled spear with the other. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. Go. Black Wind King's aura was fully unleashed. He sped up and charged into the Nangong army's cavalry formation. The Nangong family's war horses were frightened by Black Wind King. The cavalry formation that took a lot of effort to charge over was instantly scattered. Gu Jiao and Black Wind King chased after their prey. However, this was not the scariest thing. Soon Takeshi wanted to kill Gu Jiao a few times, but he was stopped by the Black Wind cavalry. Then he discovered something unbelievable. These Black Wind cavalry looked like they were killing their own people. However, they were in an organized and planned way to drive the Nangong army toward the canyon. They surrounded the Nangong army, causing the frightened soldiers to have nowhere to run. They could only retreat with all their might. However, the result of retreating was, soon Takeshi turned around and looked at the Nangong soldiers who were charging forward recklessly. "Stop. All of you, stop." Unfortunately, it was too late. The rebels who did not know what was going on ran toward the snow domain Heavenly Silk. That was supposed to be used against the Black Wind cavalry. Why? Why did it end up on our own people? Soon Takeshi let out a beast-like roar. Gu Jiao raised her spear and killed a rebel who tried to ambush Black Wind King. The situation looked good, but only she knew that. Everyone's stamina was reaching its limit. Although it was not obvious, the Black Wind cavalry's casualties would increase if they continued to fight. Gu Jiao pulled the reins tightly. "Boss!" Black Wind King understood. It followed Gu Jiao's direction and galloped toward General Tsun Takeshi. It was also running out of stamina. Everyone had been traveling for so many days. Not only were the people exhausted, but the horses were also exhausted. All the Black Wind cavalry gave it their all. They did not care about their lives or their internal injuries. On the side, some Black Wind cavalry had already fallen to the ground. They had fallen from exhaustion. Soon Takeshi swung his sword at a Black Wind cavalry warhorse. Gu Jiao raised her spear, and with a kung sound, she blocked his ferocious sword. Soon Takeshi turned around and met the young man's cold and calm eyes. The young man said calmly, "Your opponent is me." Soon Takeshi made a feint and stabbed his sword at Gu Jiao's heart. His attack was almost a sneak attack. To be honest, he was embarrassed to use such a sneak attack on a junior. However, the situation was critical. If they did not take the head of the Black Wind cavalry's commander, the Nangong army would really lose this battle. Gu Jiao was hit by his sword. His eyes lit up. He knew that no one would be able to dodge this attack. However, in the next second his expression froze. Why couldn't it pierce through? Fifth Master Han's sword could not pierce through my armor. Your sword? Can it be sharper than his? Gu Jiao looked at him calmly. Under his dumbfounded gaze, she raised her red-tasseled spear and pierced through his hard armor, stabbing him in the chest. Digression. Today Fangfangzai also wants monthly votes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1058464404. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 834. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. General Chang Wei, one of the Nangong rebel soldiers who witnessed this scene, cried out. The Black Wind Battalion soldiers took the chance to shout out, "General Chang Wei is dead." General Chang Wei was killed by the Black Wind Battalion's commander. Brothers, their ever-victorious general has died at the hands of their commander. Everyone charge! Kill these traitors! The Black Wind Battalion soldiers' morale continued to rise. Even though everyone was on the verge of collapsing from exhaustion, they clenched their teeth tightly. not letting the Nangong rebel soldiers see any signs of exhaustion. The surrounding Nangong rebel soldiers witnessed Chang Wei being assassinated with their own eyes. Even if they couldn't see it from afar, it didn't matter because Gu Jiao directly stabbed the person with his spear, hanging him high in the air. "This is your General Chang Wei. He has already died at my hands." The young man's immature voice was full of murderous intent, and it reverberated in the noisy battlefield. General Chang Wei had never been defeated before, but now he was defeated at the hands of a fledgling youth. The youth's armor reflected the silvery white moonlight. Everyone was dazed for a moment as if a new war god was born after Xianyuanli. The Nangong rebel army's morale was already low, and General Chang Wei's defeat was the last straw that broke the camel's back. In front of them was the Xianyuan steel cavalry. Behind them was the snow-field silk wall that could cut through people. Some soldiers were terrified and jumped into the lake in panic. But the moment they jumped in, Cheng Fugui and the others' arrows shot over like soul-stealing arrows. In just a few breaths of time, the lake's surface was covered in blood. The huge battlefield had completely turned into a slaughterhouse for the Black Wind Battalion. Every Nangong rebel army was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. What was even more tragic was that they had no leader. Their morale was low, and they had already lost the will to fight. They could only wait for death in despair. "Brothers, even if we die, we must drag someone down with us. Let these Black Wind cavalry die with us." How daring was this guy? However, Gu Jiao would not give them the chance to drag the Black Wind cavalry down with them. Gu Jiao said sternly, "Those who surrender will be spared. Anyone who resists will be killed without mercy." These words were undoubtedly the only way out for the rebel army in their despair. One of them threw away the weapon in his hand. Then there was a second one. After a short while, a third one appeared. Either surrender or die. Who would be willing to die? Gu Jiao ordered the cavalry at the side. "Seize their chariots." The night wasn't over yet. In the city lord's mansion, the Nangong family head was about to rest when an urgent report came from outside the courtyard. "City lord, bad news, bad news." Nangong family head frowned. He put on his outer robe and walked out of the house. Looking at the scout who had fallen into the courtyard, he asked in a deep voice, "What happened? Why are you so flustered? Where are the rules?" The scout looked at Patriarch Nangong with tears in his eyes. "City lord, General Chang Wei, General Chang Wei." Patriarch Nangong's eyes darkened. "What happened to General Chang Wei?" The scout wiped his tears and said in a choked voice, "General Chang Wei was killed by the Black Wind Camp's commander." "What?" Patriarch Nangong's expression changed. He was stunned for a while before he rejected the scout. "Are you mistaken? How could General Chang Wei die in the hands of a brat?" These words were a little boastful. Was that brat an ordinary brat? He killed Nangong Li and captured Nangong Zhe alive. What was so strange about General Chang Wei dying in his hands? However, the scout knew that Patriarch Nangong was not referring to the strength of a one-on-one battle. After all, this was a war. The Nangong family had the absolute advantage in terms of military strength. How could they lose so easily? Furthermore, General Chang Wei claimed that he knew how to deal with the Black Wind cavalry. The scout said anxiously, "City lord, I'm not mistaken. This is true. Xiao Lulang killed General Chang Wei, and tens of thousands of soldiers were captured. Xiao Lulang stole our chariots, and is rushing towards our east gate. City lord, let me escort you to leave." Patriarch Nangong said coldly, "Bastard. Who wants to leave?" The scout tried his best to persuade him. "City lord, Xuyang City's military strength has been mobilized. There are only 3,000 soldiers left in the city. They are no match for 20,000 cavalry. Where there is life, there is hope. City lord, leave this place tonight." Patriarch Nangong clenched his fist and the veins on his forehead popped out. "Where is fourth brother?" Fourth brother had 5,000 cavalry. If he could rush back from the north gate, it would be possible to stop the Black Wind cavalry with the advantage of Xuyang City, being easy to defend and hard to attack. They would not be able to stop them for long. In another 3 days, the Liang Kingdom's army would break through the Yen Gate Pass and head straight for Xuyang City. At that time, They would cooperate with the Liang Kingdom's army and kill the Black Wind Cavalry. Woo! A muffled sound of a horn came from the distant horizon. The silent Xuyang city seemed to have been torn apart. Xuyang city was shrouded in an endless war. The scout cried, "It's too late, City Lord. Fourth Master can't make it back. We can't wait any longer. Let's run." The patrolling rebel army on the East City Tower heard the sound of the horn and the sound of the charging war drum. The dark mass of cavalry seemed to have broken through the mountains and rivers. In the darkness of the night, they were like the army of King Yama, bringing with them an unstoppable murderous aura. The rebel army on the tower was so frightened that they fell to the ground. It's the Black Wind Cavalry. The Black Wind Cavalry has come to attack the city. The Black Wind Cavalry has come to attack the city. They knew very well how many people were left in the city. They could not defend it. Xuyang City could not be defended. Gu Jiao raised her hand and looked coldly at the towering tower. "Archers, get ready. Chariots, attack." The cavalrymen pushed the chariots toward the city gate tower. The iron spikes on the chariots slammed into the thick city gate again and again. Every sound of the impact was like a landslide, causing the defenders to be in a state of panic and fear. A leader of the rebel army shouted, "Release the arrows. Shoot them to death." Arrows covered the sky and the earth as they rained down on the chariots. The cavalry beside the chariots were already prepared. They raised their shields and formed an impenetrable iron dome. Some of the arrows pierced through the gaps between his fingers. Damn! One of the cavalry saw an arrow piercing through his fingers. He was so frightened that his buttocks tightened. "Catapults!" The leader of the rebel army shouted again. However, before the catapults could be pushed out, Gu Jiao shot an arrow through the head of the rebel army leader. A great battle was about to break out. However, all of a sudden, the rebel army on the tower retreated. Gu Jiao vaguely heard something about the lord of the city summoning the soldiers. Not long after, a scout from the Black Wind Battalion came over. He stopped in front of Gu Jiao and saluted. "Commander, the people of the Nangong family have escaped from the South City Gate." Chung Fugui looked at the tower that had suddenly quieted down and said, "No wonder they stopped fighting. They want to escort the people of the Nangong family out." Gu Jiao was not too surprised. The Nangong family abandoning the city and escaping was part of the plan. They had dragged their tired bodies to the city in the middle of the night. They did not really want to fight the last of the Nangong family's rebel army head-on. Although the rebel army did not have many people in the city, they had the advantage in terms of battle conditions. More importantly, the Black Wind Battalion could not fight anymore. They were already at the end of their rope. The drums, horns, and siege were all just a bluff. If the Nangong family had been a little more courageous and fought them to the death, the outcome would have been very different. Attacking the city right after the battle with Tsun Takeshi's 80,000 men was not just a show for the Nangong family. It was also a show for the captives. "Don't think that we can't fight anymore. As long as you guys are alive, the Black Wind Cavalry will never fall." This was a very risky move. The slightest carelessness could cause the entire army to be annihilated. But if they did not do this, when 4th Master Nangong's army returned to the city, they would have to endure another terrifying battle and pay a huge price. Fortunately, she won the bet. Gu Jiao looked up at the endless sky and secretly sighed in relief. She said firmly, "Everyone can rest now. Have the reserve battalion come and break the city gate. Be careful of any unexpected changes." The scout excitedly replied, "Yes." Bang! A cavalryman fell off his horse. Soon his horse also fell down beside him. This was not an isolated phenomenon. Gu Jiao did not need to turn around to know that a large number of people had fallen behind her. Everyone could not hold on any longer. However, until she said that it was time to rest, everyone maintained their fighting posture. Gu Jiao dragged her tired body down from her horse. Only now did she feel the soreness all over her body. Even her legs did not feel like they were hers. The red tasseled spear was covered in blood. She did not know if it was hers or the enemy's. She patted Black Wind King's neck. Black Wind King, who was also exhausted, lowered his head in tacit understanding. One person and one horse leaned their foreheads against each other, panting slightly. They won the battle. The Black Wind Cavalry won a battle that was almost impossible to win. They did not disappoint and took Chuyang before the Liang army arrived. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10582560. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.